357. Okay. I also don't think that people have figured out a lot of the post-buff decks. Like, I am certain there are multiple good Paladin decks. 100%.
Yeah, I mean, I would have been tinkering with the Dude Paladin if I didn't, if Quest Priest didn't become a thing, right? And then,
Yeah.
you know, because like, you know, I'm not, I have my dalliances, but you know, like there's when Tyrande calls, you answer. You know,
You don't have to rationalize. We know.
yeah.
That new skin is one of the better ones.
Oh, Kyrian Tyrande.
Yeah.
Yeah, I unfavorited all the other ones.
Yeah, it's
like
really
it's really good.
Almost enough to make me play Priest.
You can play.
I play Priest. Yeah.
Shadow Priest.
I miss him.
That new Wig Priest that's running like Power Word Fortitude seems like decent also.
That is not a Wig Priest. That is a Miracle Priest with wigs. That is,
okay, fine.
It plays 4 minions. It's the best list that I've seen. Cuts Valish because you want your switcheroo to only hit Handmaiden and Radiant. And then you just make 2 huge minions and one of them has definitional stats and then you win the game. Yeah. Boon of the Ascended is, like, I do not know if I was more wrong about any card in that expansion. I was wrong about a lot of cards, but remember that Partner in Crime was the nuts and Boon was too slow?
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
That was a thing, yeah, for like a day. And then we played with it, and then we learned.
Definitional stats, I feel like, have really changed a bunch of things, right?
Yeah.
The ghosts as well.
Yeah.
It is... I feel differently about them because one of them has stealth and the other one is in my priest deck. But like, I was really grateful for the definitional stats when Primordial Wave was common because I did so much work to get that Kyrian, and they just, if they were able to just boop it, I'd be sad.
And then they turn it into a 5/4 because it turns into Wind Commander Inkman every single time. It's a 10-drop.
Better than a 1/1. But yes.
Not by much in that deck.
It's... A 5/4 is lethal if you have a Radiant Elemental and 2 wigs in hand. Okay, where am I?
Sometimes.
Okay.
Hey, there's chat. Hi, chat.
Okay. Oh. Hi,
We
Purple.
should probably add Wicked to the About Us.
Oh, yeah, that would be a thing.
Yes, I should.
Yeah. Both of them, actually. Yeah. Hey, it's Lestalon.
What's up, Purple?
In case anyone is confused by that, and I understand there is some unpleasant cross-branding here, but Celestalon is known internally and has been for a while as Purple among the Hearthstone friends.
We might also want to get a Twitter logo that's from this decade.
We might. Sounds plausible.
Whoa. Whoa.
What is our Twitter logo?
Hang on. Shots fired.
What is our Twitter logo? I don't even know.
That is like the original Twitter logo, I'm pretty sure.
Where am I looking? What am I looking at?
And if you scroll down like a touch to like the About Us website Twitter.
Is this on our Twitch?
That's fine. No,
yeah, on the Twitch page.
Yeah, because I never actually see
Website,
our
Twitter,
Twitch page.
YouTube.
I always look at the dashboard.
Yeah.
Let's see here.
Here, I put it in Discord for you.
Oh boy. I thought gotta be in Comic Sans. Yeah, I never update this stuff. I should probably do
Yeah.
that.
I mean,
Okay.
the only reason that I updated my about me page on my channel is because it'll call me and say, "Hey, you probably should put Coin Conceit on there." Like, yeah, you're right. I probably should. That's a good thing for me to do.
Update.
I have
Twitch
it as
channel.
a thing that shows up when chat is active.
Let's see. I have the news. Get all these pictures. Thanks y'all for waiting. We're making the Sasha's live because I managed my time poorly today.
It's Friday. You're entitled.
Yeah. Well, normally I'd be working today, but instead I am not because I'm working Sunday again, which is not one of my favorite things to do, but it's a reality of my life.
Is there a big release this weekend or no?
Nope.
that's
When I
good.
work, the difference between Friday and Sunday is just based on when my managers need time off.
Mm. That makes sense.
Okay, here. Yeah, I played enough Rogue, and it came to me naturally enough that I feel comfortable talking about it. But also, we don't have to get too in-depth because I don't know how long the deck's going to be around.
The Rogue?
Yeah, it's...
I mean, they can put Edwin back. The Rogue is still around. It was around before.
I think it's a question of... I don't know if people will keep playing it if Edwin goes back to 4, except at Super High Legend, and even then, like... I don't know. We'll talk about it. It's... Format warping, not unbeatable. I mean, you know, you've dealt with it.
Yeah, I just murder them with frozen touches.
Yeah, I just murder them with Quest Priest cards. So.
Well, no, you don't murder them. You just kill all their things.
Well, okay,
and they
I more suffocate them, I suppose. I do murder them, but it's much more slow and deliberate.
And I'm
You know,
the
it's
rogue.
it's more like a Bond villain murder, really. You know?
Murder, like murder, suffocate, rogue.
Yeah.
It's all
We're
right,
not
I-
so different, you and I.
I more bored them to death, really, if you want to be accurate about it.
I do, and you do.
I wonder how many people I have made hate Flurry and Solid Alibi.
I mean,
I
Priest is
feel
basic,
confident that there's a lot of people that can take
you're-
credit for that.
Yeah, you're not. There are a lot of people spreading the word of Solid Alibi. Don't worry.
You're ending the game at least. Like, so thank you for that. At least you play damage. As opposed to just, hey, what if I recreated Snowfall Guardian, the experience that everyone was desperate to relive?
I mean, but that's
Oh,
that's
'cause
the
People are
quintessence.
recasting
Listen,
Blizzard.
Priest. Yeah, I mean, Priest was doing that kind of thing before any of these other decks were around. Like, this is just my wheelhouse now. So,
Yeah.
you know, just wait, and draw a 10-mana card eventually, and you know.
Man, I wanted to stream my mage today, but it's not up for it.
Yeah.
It'll be there when you're ready for it.
Yeah.
All right. I'm ready if you all are. I think I'm gonna.
I could press the button whenever you want me to press the button.
MT Murder. Man, this is just a fun expansion for section headings.
MT Nathria?
I like murder.
Murder's better.
Are there really that many crows?
Now I want to play Bioshock.
Murder's also fewer syllables, which is important.
All right. I'm ready enough. It'll be fine.
All right, I'm pressing the button.
Button.
Recording.
Okay. Why are we all shifted a little bit?
I look like I'm like my window. It
Everyone's
looks
a
like my
little
window
bit
is
too-
zoomed. We're zoomed in.
I'm fixing it. Don't
I think
stop the
everybody
recording,
is,
but I'm gonna
yeah.
fix it. No, you're not zoomed in. You're cropped wrong.
Yeah. It looks like you're giving me some balding, is what you're doing.
It's a little bit off the top.
Yeah. You
For
know,
some reason, all of my
I do
Discord
look a lot more like
friends-
Colin Robinson, and which is kind of appropriate, I suppose. But
Mm-hmm. And then where's me? Okay, close enough. Hey, Matt. All right. Y'all ready?
I was born ready.
3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. Starting the show in 5, 4, 3, 2.
Shadows hide you. I am listening. Our paths converge.
So good to see you.
Hail to you. Never lose hope.
Here for a chat.
I hear you. It has only begun. Fight on, friend.
Hello and welcome to episode 357 of Coin Conceit, a Hearthstone podcast dedicated to making the competitive side of the game more accessible to you. It is Friday, August 19th in the evening. From Gadgetztown, New York, we have May Ridiculous Hat. From Nomergon, Ohio, we have Edelweiss.
Hello.
And from Northern Massachusetts, we've got Wicked Good.
Hi.
And from where you are a listener, we have you. Thank you so much for being here. Reviewers, thank you so much for reviewing. Patrons, thank you so much for patronizing. We've been over this recently. Thundersheep is our newest patron. Thundersheep, thank you so much for the support. I would normally count you to go to sleep, but you are too loud. That's okay. But thank you so much for being our newest patron. Life and Ladder. Edelweiss. What's up?
Yeah, really a whirlwind of a week for me. Got to cast as a substitute for Sottle, who needed a break. And of course, Gio was playing in the Masters Tour this past weekend because she is good at everything. So...
We'll get to more of that later, by the way.
So that was a blast. Everyone was super helpful in making me feel welcome and showing me the ropes because there's some differences between casting for GMs versus for a Masters Tour, right? You had to rotate through being paired with everyone and all kinds of different stuff. So I had a blast. And once again, there's no promise of doing that again, but I am, ever more hopeful. I think every time I will have a little more hope that the next time will happen. So we'll see.
Yeah, it's I can't say for sure you'll be back, but you did cast the finals, so
that was TJ's fault.
What did he do?
Oh, no, he makes the schedule, right? And so when I was subbing in, he was like, "Okay, by the way, I'm making you cast the final." Which
I mean, they
may
don't
have been
do that
selfish as anything else, right? Because if you're not casting the final, you get to finish early, right?
I mean, in general, I think most people who are casting want to cast the final rather than finish early. So, I mean, it did help that you were on, Eastern time and not British summertime. That probably did help a little bit. But I mean, generally, that's not something that they just give the rookie unless the rookie is hitting things out of the park. So.
Classic internal self-justification.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Everyone else just wanted to leave early. That's why they gave me the finals of the tournament.
Yeah.
I think it's probably has to do with how you talk the words good. Yeah. Trust me. I know about good word talking.
Like the verb of patron.
Yeah, it's too soon. Too soon, Stephen.
Is it?
Anyways. No, it's not. It was funny. It's good content. So... Hey, you did a good job casting the finals. That was a fun tournament to watch. We'll talk about it in tournaments, but it was very Nathri-esque, entertaining. A lot of cool stuff going on. It was before the balance changes, so it was air quotes last meta. Not a lot has changed, and also we saw the debut of Lambie Rogue, which
Indeed.
At the time was surprising and interesting, and maybe Rogue will be good. And then some stuff changed, and now for sure it's good, and we'll talk about it in explanations.
One card changed.
Yeah.
So this meta is entirely Lambie Series' fault, is what we're saying. So,
yes.
So direct your comments towards him. No, don't. He's a very nice person. Don't do that.
Yes.
Yeah. But what have you been playing on the ladder? I assume not Rogue. Actually, I know what you've been playing.
Not Rogue. Yeah. No. Rogue is like upwards of 20% of what I face, so that's a thing. But fortunately, the play rate of Shaman has certainly gone down, although I do feel that the death of that deck is overblown. I think we will see Shaman make its way back. It's just people looking for an excuse to try something different. I actually wonder if some kind of bioluminescence Shaman might make its way back at some point, given that that does not require stats on your frozen things. We'll see.
Norwis tweeted a list where he included this card, Wildpaw Caverns. He said it was good.
Good card. Yeah.
I do believe him, yes.
Multicaster is pretty good as well for Shaman. You know, you can get the 3 spell schools. So.
Multicaster, good in Shaman. I'm writing this down.
It turns out it's good in Mage too.
I miss Quest Shaman.
Put that down.
I miss Quest Shaman. I'm writing that down right
now.
Me
too, but we only got 1 new overload, and it's not great for that deck.
Don't say that too loud, because they're going to bring Lightning Boom back into core if you start saying that too loudly. And nobody wants that.
They will not. 2, they destroyed that card.
Although, potentially, that kind of version might actually be okay in Standard for Shaman. But it does seem as though the deck struggles to, like, complete the quest and sort of do enough quickly after completing. I think there's kind of this tension of a desire for Shaman to have good cards that don't have overload, but then what is left for the deck that requires it to function? It's kind of awkward.
You just evolve things. That's the answer. You just play battle cries and evolve things.
Anyway, I have not been playing Shaman. I have been playing. I'm calling it Frozen Mage because it's not Freeze Mage. It's not quite like that. Obviously, nothing quite will have that play pattern with the removal of Alexstrasza, the old Alexstrasza, where you would just set people to 15 and then do your lethal. This plays much more like any of the aggressive sort of freeze mages of old, with Medivh's Valet and Mana Worm. I don't have Mana Worm, but I do basically run some early minions. Sanctum is a huge powerhouse. Just freeze anything in the early game. You just want the 2/2, and you get as much chip damage as possible in, and try and try and infuse your frozen touches as much as possible and get that extra damage. I'm running Aegwynn because Aegwynn is like my favorite mage legendary that I feel has never really had a good home, and people silence it, they transform it, whatever that happens sometimes, but they don't always, and when they don't, those frozen touches that you get to recur, and there's not that many spells in the deck. I think there's only 10 cards worth of spells. But the frozen touches you get to play repeatedly. I mean, those are now 5. So you get an Aegwynn on a 1-mana minion, and you can really pop off. And it does reasonably well against Mage, because you have Solid Alibi and Flurries to deal with their minions. Usually, a big Necrolord Draco weapon can still be rough, because you have to make sure you freeze their face or use Solid Alibi, but it definitely has a good shot. And it also, I think, is pretty good against the quest priests that are hunting the rogues, because they don't do anything. All they care about is killing big minions. I have small minions. They actually have fewer clears for small minions since they're so focused on rogue. And unless, usually you have this kind of 2-pronged attack of, I can kill you with frozen touches or hero powers. And so if you Theotar, my Mordrish, okay, I'll still get you with frozen touches. If you Theotar a frozen touch, I'll still get you with the other stuff. And sometimes I get 3 frozen touches in hand. And it's okay, you can have one.
Yeah, what I found as the quest priest is anything that's running frozen touch just accelerates the clock too much to really have the time to do everything that you want to do. But yeah, I'll take that. If I get to beat rogue all the time, I'll take that. It's fine.
Yeah, Commander Savara, I feel like, is a powerhouse just for mage generally these days. Incidentally, I think my weakest matchup with this deck is other mages, because they do the same thing I do, but with more health, and Deathborn, which I don't run because it's not great against things not mage. It's too high curve for this deck.
Yeah. It's I like this deck a lot. It's being able to lean into Frozen Touch. Frozen Touch is the card in Mage that I've been the most excited to exploit since I've seen it, because you just get to deal like 15 damage with it. And it's not hard to get the infuse going, and it's not hard to weave into the turn. I think right now, people are looking at Mage. It's doing a few things that are kind of annoying. First of all, it can stop you from dealing them damage for like 6 turns in a row. The popular Mage list right now is the Renathal Spooky Mage with Solid Alibi, Blizzard, Grey Sage Parrot, the Hero, Flurry, and Sivera. And so you're able to, like, some combination of Solid Alibi and Board Freeze many, many, many times a game. And the scaling of the Dawngrasp Hero Power, the Hero Dawngrasp Hero Power, ends up putting games out of reach when fighting on board is impossible. You're not looking to do that. I am sure you can win some games here with Dawngrasp, but your goal isn't to slow the game down. It is to slow down development so you can end the game. And that's pretty fundamentally different. And that means that the value of the scaling hero power over time, while not nothing, and while it's not off the table, it's not your plan A. Which I like.
Yeah.
Cool deck. I dig it. Steve, how you been?
Well, so I've been on vacation this week. So I've
That's
had
nice.
a lot of time. Not as much time, because we drove up to and from Maine a couple of days. I'll get there. But I was able to stream on Tuesday after the patch dropped because I'm home. I had installed a towel bar in the children's bathroom right before that, so that was my prepayment to stream the afternoon. And I tried a bunch of things. I tried to make Quest Demon Hunter work. It wasn't working. I tried Control Warrior. It super wasn't working. And then, towards like an hour left in the stream, someone said, well, why don't you try Paladin? Like, do I have to? All right, let's make a dude Paladin. And that was pretty good. Went like 5-0 with it at the end of the stream. It was like done Baldur Bunker into 4 mana Stand Against Darkness is a lot of stats. It's not like Imp Lock stats. And this was day 1 before everybody knew what they were doing. Right, but like Warhorse Trainer giving +2 attack and taunt is a lot. There was one game against a Quest Priest where I had a board of Silverhand recruits they left up. I just slammed both Warhorse Trainers on the board and just shoved everything face, and it was quite a bit of damage. I did get there. It took me a little. That didn't end the game, but it got me closer. And then, running Cariel and Denathrius because why not? You jam a whole bunch of Silverhand recruits on the board, they die, they pump up Denathrius, and then if they manage to clear all the boards, then Denathrius finishes it up. But Dunbalder Bridge. Did I say Dunbalder Bunker? I probably did, because I've been thinking about Quest Hunter. But Dunbalder Bridge, that's the 4 mana card that I should probably say what it does, because nobody's probably seen it in like a year. But it's the 4 mana card that lasts for 3 turns, and every minion you summon, not play but summon, gets +2/+2. So you have a lot of low curve. You run Peasant, you run Righteous Protector, and you just like throw a whole bunch of stats on the board, make them deal with it, and then if they get cleared, then you've infused the Buffet Biggin, which summons more with the Divine Shield, and you've got the Steward to pump it up. Like, I played that a bunch on like day 1, and it was good enough that it was working. So I was excited about it. And then I saw a tweet from Theo that, hey, by the way, Quest Priest is broken. Like, okay, you have my attention. So that's what I've been playing for pretty much since I saw that tweet. We went up to Maine to pick up the kids. So on the way back from Maine, we stopped at this place called Red's Eats, which is this really famous lobster roll place up in Maine, in Wiscasset. And because like we bring my parents take the kid who doesn't go up to camp for the night, so in order to say thank you, we bring home a lobster roll for my dad. They're nice. They wrap it in ice. We have like an industrial like fishing cooler, and we bring it back. So the problem with Red's Eats is that it's pretty popular. So we got there and the line was around the corner, And so that was going to mean a 2-hour wait, which is also the reason that we didn't
Oh,
record
boy.
yesterday, because we were waiting in line for 2 hours at Red Seats. Because that's my dad likes the thing. We waited in line for it. And we like the food. Obviously, we eat there too. I don't eat shellfish, but there's other stuff that I got that's really good too. So I just stood in line and jammed Quest Priest games on my phone for 2 hours, waiting in line at Red Seats, and got myself into 11X ranks at the time. I've been bouncing back and forth because I've been trying other stuff for THL. But gosh, it just, if you hate Rogue, if you hate Miracle Rogue, if you really hate it, the enemy of your enemy is your friend. Because it just destroys Rogue. The only thing that it doesn't have a direct answer for is the big weapon, and you have Theotar and Mutinous. Well, Mutinous is usually too late, but Theotar, you can usually just steal it, and then you don't have to worry about the weapon anymore. But even if they do, you have healing, and all of the minions line up super well into Light Bomb. It is so satisfying to watch them spend 20 minutes taking a turn, playing a million cards, and then you just play your 6-mana card and the board goes away. It's nice and clean. It's like the end of a Katamari level, and then you just go on with your day. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. So I had a really, really good win rate with that and got up into I'm close to 11X ranks now. I'm 11X adjacent just because I've been trying, some other classes, but the druids still make your life miserable, and there's some mages that are starting to counter Quest Priest. It's becoming a little bit more targeted, but gosh, I am back in my happy place. It is so I love playing Control Priest. I don't know what's wrong with me, but especially when there's a deck that everybody hates, that I get to just play the other deck that everybody hates and counter it. I'm enjoying. I'm living my best life, is what I'm trying to say.
I have the most crazy screenshot that we've ever had on this show. I'm going to say it. And we did not rehearse this. I'm just going to make my co-host Steve happy here. Because if you look at top 1000 Legend since the patch, I have put a screenshot of the top 3 decks in top 1000 Legend since the patch on the screen. Number 1 is Beast Druid, which I didn't expect. Number 2, at top 1000 Legend this week, is Quest Priest. That is the best this deck has ever been by a large margin.
Yeah.
Now,
it's not close.
It is being overrepresented because this was just to farm rogues, and it's very good at rogues, and rogues was highly overrepresented. If I look at only last one day, Quest Priest is down to 5th place, Naga Priest has moved up, Ramp Druid has moved up, Beast Druid still number 1, and again, that's also a very small sample size because not a lot of people are playing it, but it does very well against both Rogue and Druid at High Legend. Those are the 2 decks that you want to see, because they're everywhere. So it does well against rogues because it has a lot of taunts. It does well against slow druid because it makes huge boards quickly.
As long as they can't brand Denathrius you, because that's how they end the game. If you can get your quest done before they can brand Denathrius you.
Yeah,
but,
it's a small game count, but in top 1000, Beast Druid versus Ramp Druid has a 79% win rate. I don't think we get to brand Denathrius all that often because the board gets so wide so fast, and then you Pride's Fury, and then that's it. Your stuff is never dying. So, also of note, Beast Druid, the cheapest deck in this standard format, which is does not have very many inexpensive decks, but it has 0 cards from
in terms of dust, you mean, right?
Well, and also it tops it at 4, but yes. It has 0 cards from the new expansion, 0 legendaries, 2 epics, they are both compostings, and the rest is all rares and commons. So if you were looking for an inexpensive, good deck to play right now, the Aggro Druid list on the Vicious Syndicate website is where I would go. It is quite good, and at high MMR ranks, it is strong. Because you're facing mostly rogues and druids, and it is good against both. So yeah, man.
Yeah.
Quest Priest, top 5 deck in standard. What a time to be alive.
Yeah, who would have thought? I did not expect to be playing a Control Priest after the nerf, but sometimes that's how metas work. Yeah.
Anyways, I've been playing Hearthstone It's a fun game. I dumpstered down to. My rank got worse because I was playing unrefined decks, and then my rank got better because I was playing slightly better unrefined decks. And I also played some rogue because as you do. I will note, I didn't play any rogue day 1. I played it day 2, and they said, this is dumb. And then I played a little bit more, and then I was back in top 500 somewhat quickly. And then I wrote explanations. But I have been doing all right in top 500 with both Draco Cat's Relic DH, which is okay. When you hit the curve of Vault, Phantasms, and then you Dimensions on 5, does all right. Does fine.
What is Draco doing to actually end the game in that deck? Because there's a few different approaches. There's some that are Death Rattle. There are some that are just like doing the Fell Spell thing. What's his angle?
This is Death Rattle.
Okay.
And also Denathrius, but nothing too fancy here. It does the Death Rattle thing, so it can play Crixus, cheat Crixus out. It does, full Relic package, has Zelag, has Kurt. It does have Kael'thas in it, and Talon as well to get Denathrius because you really want to start infusing pretty quickly. And, it's fine. This is not a meta-defining deck. I don't expect it to put up crazy win rates. I don't expect people to bring it to Grandmasters, but it's all right. It has turns where you're like, this is a good deck, and then it has games where you're like, this isn't a good deck, and it's all right. I've also been trying out Aquas and Rage Warrior, which is also an archetype that is like, it is very clearly, it reminds me of a Voyage deck where your deck is half the good cards, and then you have to play the other half. His Mulligan guide said, Mulligan for Location, Extractor, X. Yep. Those are the good ones. Little Rokara sometimes. But if you get Anima Extractor down, the one for that every time a minion takes damage, then +1/+1 to a minion in your hand. If you get that card down, and it does not die, then suddenly it will never die, and then your deck is insane. Because Imbued Axe it went from, well, spoilers, you probably know this, it went from giving +1/+1 base to +1/+2 base. It is so hard to kill a 2/5 Anima Extractor on turn 3, or a 4/5, whatever. It's huge. And then if you put a Burden of Pride in front of it, just like for the rest of the game, whenever your stuff takes damage, you blow people out. Ogre gets huge. Ramornia does like 10 damage 3 times a turn. Really, really fun deck. Really fun. It is inconsistent. It is somewhat snowbally. You can get pushed off the board. It's bad for you. You can stay on the board. It's good for you. I made a 17-18 Prince Renathal that was put into my hand by a Theatar. I lost that game because Mage, but it was a 17-18 Prince Renathal. Big fun. There will be a point where they print more support for this deck. Mostly cards that say draw a card or some variation of that on it. But it's not that far off. You can have fun games with it. Still doing some Naga Priesting. That deck is fun. Ramping some Druid stuff. Still good. I think Standard's fun and interesting right now, even though there are some play patterns that I'm not the hugest fan of, and they are in my favorite class. In addition, bought a bunch of games on Switch this week. Cult of the Lamb, my least favorite of the 3. It's not a bad game, but it is a town management game with 10-minute hack and slash breaks, and I wanted Hades with a cute little town. So it's okay. That is my own expectation, Steve. I know you've been playing some of it too.
That was my review as well. There was more Animal Crossing than I wanted, and not enough Binding of Isaac for my tastes.
Yep. If you like the town stuff, you should get this game. Probably on PC, the Switch performance is highly questionable. It's just choppy. But if you like the town management stuff and you don't mind the hack and slash breaks, the combat's not bad. It's just very basic. The dash is responsive. The controls are good. There's just not as much depth to it. But the town stuff is really interesting. Some people I've talked to totally love it. I wanted to love it, and then it wasn't what I was expecting, which is partially my own fault, but also partially I bought into the hype machine. Kirby's Dream Buffet. It is Mario Kart, but you're Kirby, and you get shrunk down to ride on top of desserts, and you win a series, not by getting to the finish line the fastest, but on the way there you eat strawberries, and the goal is to be the fattest Kirby. And you alternate...
Your wife must love this game.
Oh, we both do. We played so much of it, and you alternate between racing levels and Mario Party-esque minigame levels that ends in a battle royale where you try and knock strawberries out of each other so you can eat the strawberries, and then whoever's the biggest at the end, it's not a trophy podium. You all get dropped on scales, like little postage scales, and then whoever squishes the scale the most, whoever is the fattest Kirby, wins at the end. It's great. There are so many little costumes.
Nintendo's a heck of a company.
They're great. It's great. And you get to, like, the car mouth cake from Kirby's Forgotten Land, you can wear as a hat as a Kirby. You can wear the car mouth cake. I do a lime green Kirby with whipped cream as a hat. I'm a little key lime pie. That's me. That's a lot of fun. And then Curse to Golf. Curse to Golf is a golf roguelike, not roguelite, roguelike. I think there's some prog mechanics. It is a precision platformer that uses golf mechanics. Very good, extremely challenging. Very, very fun, but very hard compared to a lot of the roguelikes I play. Like, you are just going to die all the time. And so it turns into this cool, like, puzzle sort of thing where the first time you do a hole, it might take you, like, 20 shots. And then afterwards, after you do a little bit, you can figure out, like, under 5 if you use the course mechanics, but it's very challenging and definitely like a puzzle game / roguelike. Really fun. I enjoyed it.
Like Jump King.
Yes. Or like, it's almost like a Super Meat Boy sort of thing.
Or like, wasn't there, oh God, what was the name of that golf game on iOS? There was now I can't, Super something golf, I don't know. Now I'm completely blanking on it, but there was another one where it was like, you have like ice levels and lava levels and stuff like that you have to get through. It was like in the like the Angry Birds era.
Yeah. I believe you.
Oh, yeah.
But
I should mention I got Rollerdrome too this week.
Oh, how is that? I heard that was great.
Oh, it's so good. So like, if you like Tony Hawk at all ever, you will love this game. It's basically like you're on roller skates, and it's like a Tony Hawk game, except that there are people shooting at you, and so you have to shoot them to advance the multiplier. So like you get weapons, and then like you get like this bullet time mechanic where you slow everything down. So like you don't have to worry about like actually like aiming while you're flipping around, but you slow down time, and then you shoot them, and then you go back to you have to do tricks to reload your ammo. So then you're doing tricks to reload your ammo, and then you have to shoot the people to keep your multiplier up, and then there's like Tony Hawk level objectives that you need to clear in order to open up the next course. It's like, oh, it's so good. It's got this really cool stylized art style. And yeah, if you like any sort of a skating game or like extreme sports game, just go get it. You will not be disappointed. It's really good.
And this has been Coin Concede Side Game Reviews.
We do this every week. This is not new information. Yes. Listen, people know us by now. We talk about rogue and roguelikes. That's what we do here.
Yes.
I have a brand. I am a fuzzy search. If it starts with rogue, I'm probably going to talk about it.
We talk about priests and we talk about cults. It all works.
Yeah. Also, we're going to talk about a massive nerf patch, so let's go into the news and try and keep the show under 3 hours.
Gadgets and Gazette always gets the scoop.
Okay, so, as we've alluded to multiple times in the first 20 minutes of the show, there is a large patch. So, this patch has 26 changes. In addition to a bunch of Battlegrounds changes. Battlegrounds players, we think you're great. We're not going to talk about the BG changes today because since the patch we have played 0 games of BGs. If you want to hear me sound uninformed, speculating about what these changes sound like, go listen to the episode of Coin Concede, or go listen to the episode of Angry Chicken I recorded 2 days ago. I did a great job of sounding uninformed there. Joss also did a good job of actually playing BGs and talking about it, but there is just too much to keep up with here for us to express in a show. We focus on constructed. We want to make sure we do that, but also, it's been 3 days since the patch. We're going to give an overview of all the things that changed, talk about the impact. We'll stop after the nerfs and digest. We'll stop after the full discussion and digest. There are a bunch of side notes as well that have been covered in many places. Like I have to talk about Aleko's Twitlonger, which he could not be contained by simple patch notes and had to write too many words to be contained in a Twitter thread. It's clear that the decisions here were made out of a desire for the new things to land and the old things to be toned down in terms of feels. Whether it was actually successful still remains to be seen, but we'll at least just start by giving you the update on what actually happened. So, as an overview, the top line dev comment, I'm not going to read all of them, but I'm going to read this one. The current power level of the top decks after the launch of Murder at Castle Nathria is pretty close to the level that we'd like it to be, but we're less happy with the power level of the weakest classes. So while we did a few touches to the top decks, with the goal of reducing play against frustration, the primary goal of this patch was to elevate the classes that are struggling. So they adjusted down 4 cards. 4 cards plus a card in Wild. Celestial Alignment, to the surprise of nobody. It used to be both players set to 0, set the cost of all cards in hands and decks to 1. Now it's only for the person casting it. Set your mana crystal to 0, set the cost of cards in your hand and deck. Alignment was printed in Barrens. It was enabled in Wailing Caverns when Anaconda came out. That was 5 sets now. 4.5, 5 sets, whatever you want to call it. Been a long time. They printed Convoke. Time to change the text box. It's not a balance outlier, but it's been a frustrating card to play against for a while, so they removed that. Stag Spirit Wild Seed, the one that gave you the bow. It gave you a 4-2 weapon when it woke up. That was crazy. Every time they randomly give you 4-2 weapons, they have to nerf it because it's always too much damage. No difference here. Wild Seed package is good in every Hunter deck, but it's cool and fun. Just being unable to stop the tidal wave of damage was difficult, so they toned down the damage that you randomly got for free. Cool. You can dust all of your Wild Seed cards. Probably don't. They're still great. It's just no longer total BS damage.
Although,
but if you have Goldens or you have extras, then go ahead.
Sure.
Yeah, and that's what I did was I had, I think for both of the epics I had Goldens, and so I just got rid of the Goldens and made the regular, and that is still a net positive.
Yep. Though all the Wild Seeds are very pretty and golden.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
more dust.
but those could be Golden Priest cards, you know.
You quiet you. So, Snowfall Guardian. Oh yeah. Oh, this is the stuff. So they made it go from a 3/3 that froze all minions and got +1/+1 for each to just a 5/5 that froze all other minions. Okay. So, turns out that if Shaman wants to play a slower game, they have to play a slower game. That is, that's what happens. It doesn't kill you anymore. You can still play this card if you want to beat some Zoo decks, but there are a lot of control Shaman decks that are starting to cut this. The Shaman is still fine, by the way. Shaman is not dead.
And I also think it's still kind of crazy to me to cut this, right? Like, freeze everything, make a 5/5 is still a very powerful effect because you still claim initiative. So you can still do the same combos, and while they don't make large minions that will win the game for you, and certainly Macawing the effect is a lot less good because it doesn't come with a big body, right? It just is a 3/3. You can still do the, okay, freeze, don't attack with my minions, and like now you can sort of do the attacks how you want to because you have reclaimed initiative. So I think this is one of those things where the play rate has been nerfed. People will revisit and come back and figure out how they want to play with Snowfall Guardian. Maybe it won't return in that same way, but I find it hard to believe that this isn't still a pretty good card. I mentioned earlier that it doesn't matter the size of your minions if you're going to do bioluminescence things, which all you care about there is keeping your side of the board alive. It doesn't matter if they're frozen, so maybe that'll come back. I like this change. This isn't something that I really thought of when it came to the sort of the Snowfall Guardian problem. I had been very focused on Macaw. I definitely think that with this change, it becomes a lot less necessary to touch Macaw. And so, as you said last episode, Macaw is the cooler card. So it's nice that they got to keep that alive. And it seems, at least for now, that it's not causing anyone grief in the form of just being insatiable devourers or extra Denathrius.
I mean, there's some grief.
Yeah. I mean, you know, like we play Little Varden, right? And if you just add 2 to the numbers of Little Varden, I mean, you know, it's all other minions instead of just your enemy's minions, but you know, that's also a legendary, right? So like, you know, we play Little Varden for a 4 mana 3/3 that freezes the board. It's a 6 mana 5/5 that freezes the board. It's fine. It's a 5/5. It's still a reasonable body, but it's not going to be a 10/10 or an 11/11. So you're going to have to actually like do something else to end the game. Now, Shaman had other ways to do that. It wasn't relying on like this is not like the burn Shaman of Alterac Valley, where the win con was Snowfall Guardian for the most part. Snowfall Guardian and then a little bit of burn to you know finish up. Like there are other things you can do in Control Shaman, but there's also like there was that old League of Legends study from when they made a nerf in the patch notes, but then forgot to put that nerf in the actual patch, and everybody stopped playing that champion anyway because they were just convinced that it was bad now, right? Like this is kind of the same thing. Like, you know, we don't really I'm sure Shaman is a little bit worse. People are bored of Shaman and want to try the new stuff, and also like they'll get around to that and trying it when, you know, once they've kind of explored the rest of the meta.
Well, the other thing is, I mean, I say that 7s are bad, but you can still try and evolve this if you want. Some of the 7s are good hits.
Mr. Smite's a 7.
I was thinking more Remornia, but
yeah, okay.
There are... I forget what the crazy 7 is in this format, but I know there is at least one. I saw...
Remornia is pretty good.
Remornia is pretty good. There's Mountain Bear.
You can't evolve into Colossals.
Cannot hit the Colossals. What was this crazy? There was one. Red Herring. Red Herring is very good.
Oh yeah, Red Herring will do. That'll do nicely.
Yeah.
Druid of the Plains isn't bad either if you hit it.
Yes, I lost to a Druid of the Plains. Lothar is actually not terrible, even though his freeze interactions are bugged and bad, like really bad. He just basically never unfreezes if he gets frozen because of how he's coded, which I maintain is a bug. But, you know, not a lot of people playtesting Lothar out there. But yeah, it's usually you don't want to go to 7s, but you can.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's I am glad that they made this change because it was just so frustrating to deal with, and now I get to be frustrated by the other blue class instead, as nature intended. Via Library went from give a friendly minion +1/+1 and then repeat for each imp to just give a minion +1/+1 for each imp. There are so many people I've talked to that didn't understand this change and thought it worked the nerfed way anyway, that I'm really glad they changed it because the card makes more sense. And also is just a little bit less crazy. It's just a little easier to kill things. It has fail states, which is okay in a deck that has so many efficient cards. And Imp Warlock, like, it's not a bad deck, but it's fallen off in play rate so quickly at Legend, in part because the Rogue matchup is not great. Druid matchup still very, very good, but Rogue matchup is not great.
Yeah, and it doesn't like seeing Quest Priest either.
Yeah, it can do okay there. Like, it
can get there, but yeah. But Light Bomb is not a card it's happy to see either, nor is Shadow Word Ruin.
But you can outlast so much stuff. Like, I played in my THL match this week. I purposely let them freezing trap my Infused Rafam. Like, you just don't run out of stuff. It has so much stuff. So yeah, I think Imp Warlock is at the right spot. I'm really glad they didn't over-nerf it. And looking at these changes, I don't think they over-nerfed anything. Celestial Alignment might be deleted, but I didn't say that they over-nerfed it. I just said they deleted it.
I wouldn't say we're missing it.
I certainly wouldn't. And you can still play it, but why would you? And I haven't seen any, so, you know, I'm not upset. Snowfall, like, Control Shaman was still fine. I've seen a bunch. Hunter is obviously still great. Hasn't changed a single card. I don't know anyone that's dusted Wild Seeds except for extras, because they're still really, really strong. So yeah, I am pleased with these changes. They also nerfed a card for Wild Kobold Illusionist. It went from a 4 to a 5. For those of you that don't remember what this card does, it was a 4-mana 3/3 Death Rattle, summon a 1/1 copy of a minion from your hand. So people would load their deck with giant minions, and then would prep sketchy information on one and get a Neptulon Colossal in play. Which was better than most turn 1s. Your backup plan was either Azamat or Stoneborn Accuser, I think there was one other. Or no, Stoneborn General. The 8-8 rush thing that makes another 8-8. You got so many minions in play. You could do Snowfall Graveyard and then double sketchy. So now Kobold Illusionist cannot be sketchied. So the deck is worse or gone. I don't know which. Hopefully gone. Good riddance.
Yeah. Now people are in Wild are resorting to cheating out Neptulon and Priest as Yogg intended. So.
Yep. There are still a lot of discussions going around about Wild on social media. Matt London put it very succinctly, just that the player base of Wild is split between people that want a super powerful format with crazy combos and people that want their old decks to be playable nostalgically. And those are diametrically opposed, can't both be true, and there are, the audience is split right in half on what they want to do. So, yeah. Now we have buffs. There are a lot of these. This was less than 20% of the patch. So here we go. I am not going to stop for each class and digest because we'll be here all day. We're going to talk about all of these at the end. But we're going to go. Relics. Relic Vault. The location went from 3 to 2. Relic of Extinction, the damage relic, went from 2 mana to 1 mana. You can actually just curve now. Extinction into Vault into Phantasms, and then turn 5 you can double your dimensions and have a really solid curve. Bibliomite, the 4/4 that shuffled a hand from your deck, or a card from your hand into your deck when you played it, is now a 5/4. Magnifying Glaive, the weapon that after it attacked, draw until you have 3 cards. It was a 3 mana 2/2, now it's a 3 mana 3/2. It's... In a Renathal world, you need to be a little better, and shuffling away your own cards isn't good, so they needed to make the payoff stronger. Abyssal Depths went from 4 mana to 3 mana, so you can curve it into Vandar as the draw your 2 lowest cost minions, one of the better card reveals in history. Battle-Worn Vanguard used to be a 2/2, then was sent to a 2/1, now he's back to a 2/2. We're pausing for this one. Brute me, dude! We're back. Ironbound Brute is back. It's not good in Standard. Don't try and play it in Standard. Plenty of people are. It's not the right thing to do. But my fully golden Standard deck is still legal in Wild, and I fired it up. I did win 1 game. I lost more than I won, but the deck is very good at playing Brutes. And also, in the patch notes, the reverts to Battle-Worn Vanguard and Ironbound Brute should make them more attractive options for the class. Brute me, dude! And... most importantly, Aleko was asked on social media, why? Why did you do this change? I have put his response on screen. To quote him, I did it for the dudes. Which also explains the Paladin buffs. What a great segue for me. So, the Countess invitation, to remember the Countess, if your deck is Pure Paladin, your name is Bodicus, then you get to make a bunch of invitations. They went from 3 mana to 2 mana. And then also they buffed a bunch of dude cards. Stand Against Darkness from 5 mana to 4 mana to make 5 1/1 recruits. Warhorse Trainer went from a 3/4 that gave your Silverhand recruits +1 attack to your Silverhand recruits have +2 attack and taunt. 3 mana 3/4. Promotion used to be 1 mana, give a Silverhand recruit +3/+3. Now it gives +3/+3 and taunt. To quote the patch notes, promotion now comes with a raise. Good. Workers' rights. Here for it. Rogue changes.
You're starting to sound like me.
I want Rogue to be good, but not like this. Anyways, Edwin Defias Kingpin went from 4 mana 4/4 to 3 mana 3/3. It's a really fun card, but it's way too good now. Way too good. This is not from data. This is not. I'm not reading the patch notes. It doesn't say this is way too good in the patch notes. I'm just saying. But this got buffed when Rogue had a breakout performance at the Masters Tour this past weekend. We'll refer to Aleko's tweet longer in a bit, talking about his feelings on this. Sprint went from 6 mana to 5 mana. It's cool. No one was playing at 6. It's fine. Silverleaf Poison went from 2 mana to 1 mana. So if you're making a weapon for some reason, and the game's not over, then you can draw some cards. There are some lists that are playing 1 copy of this. Same with 1 copy of Sprint. And then Halkias went from a 4 mana 5/4 that when it died, if you had a secret, it jumped inside the secret and popped back out when the secret popped. Now it also has stealth, so you can control how it attacks or whatever. Theoretically. You know what else has stealth? Secret Rogue. I have not seen a single one on the ladder, because that deck is horrendous. because the secrets are bad. For those of you that have been playing it, you know as well as I do that you improve your win rate by cutting Kidnap from the deck, because Kidnap says 2 mana, brand your opponent for the next battlecry they play, which is not really what you want to do. Giving away Reckless Apprentice activations isn't how you win games of Hearthstone, and that's always what seems to happen whenever I'm against a mage. I hope Kidnap is just in my hand so it can't be pulled by Private Eye. Just kidding, I don't play Secret Rogue, why would I? They did say that they wanted to make card draw better because traditionally a strength of Rogue. I do think that is the good way to go, but maybe that Edwin buff might not have been the way to do it. We'll talk about that somewhat extensively. Then we got warrior changes. Sanguine Depth's the location. Went from 1 mana, deal 1 damage to a minion, give it +1 attack. Now it's back to +2 attack to match Cruel Taskmaster. In addition, for those of you Samuro fans out there, there is an acknowledged bug by the devs that if you Cruel Taskmaster Samuro, it deals 3 AoE. But if you location a Samuro, it only does 1 AoE. The damage happens before the Frenzy and the attack buff. That is going to be changed. So, theoretically, it should be Samuro dealing 3. We'll find out, but my understanding is that it should be player favorable.
That does sound like a monkey's paw situation right there. Yeah. So yeah,
my understanding is that it should be player favorable. Imbued Axe went from a after your hero attacks, give your damage minions +1/+1 to +1/+2, and it went from Infuse 3 to Infuse 2. The upgraded state remains +2/+2. This card is ridiculous now. It was good before. It is truly absurd. Edelweiss, you want to say something? You go nuts. I'm not going to stop you.
Oh, I was just going to say that in a lot of senses, the change to the Infuse is irrelevant because you don't care about the attack nearly as much as the health, I think, when you're buffing stuff. It's nice, but like you already didn't really focus on infusing this before, and now it's truly just like play this on curve and go nuts.
Yeah. I mean, it happens it just happens sometimes. And it's cool when it does. Sure. Right? Yeah, it's more. But yeah, it's the base version is so good now that you don't need to care about the infuse, but also it'll just infuse sometimes. And that's cool. Like, we like that. Cruel Taskmaster went from a 2/2 to a 2/3. Tidal Revenant reverted back to a 5/8. Shield Shatter reverted back to deal 5. Slam. Yes, that Slam. The original one from Vanilla Hearthstone. 2 mana, deal 2 damage to a minion if it survives, draw a card. It costs 1 mana now. It's a good card. Bash. The one that was from TGT, 3 mana, deal 3 damage, gain 3 armor. Now it costs 2 mana. It does go face. It's always gone face. Pretty cool. So,
I feel like these changes are bringing these cards into modern Hearthstone, right? All these core cards. But that does not necessarily make them viable still.
Well, it puts them on the level of core cards, right? Which is not necessarily what you're going to be targeting to put into a constructed deck a lot of the time, unless, I mean, not all of them, but like a lot of them that are, a lot of the ones that we've seen buffed are still not good enough, the ones that were buffed in core.
Yeah, I mean, Cruel Taskmaster feels good now, and like I might consider putting Slam in something, or like Bash if you had a Galvangar that you needed to boost, right? If for some reason armor mattered. I think when you compare Bash to something like Tooth of Nefarian or Frozen Touch, right? It's definitely the worst of the 3. But it's just, yeah, as you said, it's missing something, and whether that is a Battle Rage equivalent, a Bloodsworn Mercenary equivalent, I don't know, but
yeah, it's the deck has good games now. I don't know if it's a good deck, but it has good games. It's not all of them, for sure, not all of them. Again, it feels more like a Voyage deck in an Athria world, where like the good decks now are the consistent ones. It just the bad games don't go well enough to justify playing the deck necessarily, but there are some innovations going on. Aqua was doing well around rank 30 on Americas with a list that had Nerubian Egg, which makes a lot of sense to me, that even when you're cleared, you're not cleared. And the issue with the deck is just staying on the board. It reminds me a lot of Naga Priest before it got more support, because it was just reliant on Wig. Now you're just reliant on Extractor. It's kind of the same thing. So it will get more consistent, but the games where it works, it really works. Your minions are huge. You're able to draw a bunch of cards with acolytes that like keep getting bigger forever and draw you a ton of cards. And it's really hard for people to keep up. And then you kill with like a 16 attack Grom, or you have a Ramornia that just keeps whoosh whoosh whooshing and it just sticks around forever. I got Ramornia Rokara the other day, little Rokara, and that's so fun because it just like it just undoes whatever the weapon swings do, and you just guarantee get to start. Like, I'm so glad Ramornia is good, and I think that card is actually good.
Yeah, I mean, what it sounds to me like you're describing Death Rattle Demon Hunter prior to the Barons mini set, and Quest Pirate Warrior before the Stormwind mini set, right? Like, those were decks that you could play, and they had good games, and then they fell on their face a lot, and then they got like one or two more cards in the mini set, and then they were real decks after that. So that's kind of what that sounds like when you're describing that.
Yeah, it's close. I doubt it's there yet, but it's close, and what we have is very fun. And I think that if you're playing not at high legend as well, you could easily climb to legend with this deck. It might take you a little bit longer, but it has enough good games, enough power in the games that are good to win more than it loses. Just when you get to the super competitive part of ladder, then I think that it's unlikely to be reliable enough or to match up well enough. Also, if you get frozen a lot, it sucks. Not saying that you can't win, but you really don't want to get frozen a lot. Solid Alibi, also very unpleasant. Stupid mages. So, in addition to the massive wall of changes and the constant dev comments sprinkled throughout, Aleka wrote a twit longer that is linked in the show notes. I'll link it in the Twitch chat here. It is the first time that there's been a massive buff patch 2 weeks after the expansion. We're going to talk about this. We're going to get you're going to hear our stance on what that means, because you know that we've been talking over the past few months about too many changes too fast, which I think is still a reasonable concern. But it's interesting that they only had to lightly nerf the top classes, and they were way more focused on buffs because that's what needed to happen. The dead classes need to be restored to life, and the top classes were all kind of competitive with each other. There were 6 that were solid and 4 that weren't. Well, 3.5 it turns out, because he specifically touches Rogue. He said, I'll quote this: "We're taking a few swings with this patch, notably the buff to Edwin. One of the interesting parts of the patch leak was that the Edwin buff was spotted early. We had the chance to hear plenty of feedback from players about their concerns with the Edwin change before it made its way to live. Want to talk about the change in the context of a point of feedback in the patch that I don't fully disagree with. This patch appears to be arriving at an awkward time. We had to lock in all of the changes for this patch a week ago." He's referring to, this was on Tuesday the 16th, so they had to lock in all the changes on Tuesday the 9th because of how software development works. Have to go through regression testing, patch approval. Steve, you can speak to this more than I do because you actually work in this stuff. But basically, once the patch gets going, it's going, and if you try and stop it, you're just redoing the patch, which means it wouldn't have happened at all.
And we know that for a fact, because the reason that we found out about these on Friday is because that patch ended up live accidentally during the Masters Tour, and we saw some people playing or were tweeting screenshots of people playing with 3-mana Edwins that looked like when they did the day 1 emergency DH patch and had all the green numbers. So we know that patch was there because that patch accidentally got onto the live servers before it was supposed to.
Yeah. So we had to lock in all the changes for this patch a week ago, which was before the emergence of the Lambie Series Rogue deck. At the time we locked in the changes, Rogue looked like it was in deep trouble and in need of some foundational help. A few days later, players were doing well with the Rogue decks at the Masters Tour, and the story had changed. This is the risk we run when attempting to react quickly to problems. There will sometimes be situations where developing situations change. If we could have watched the MT before locking in the Rogue change, would we still have done the buff to Edwin? I don't think we would have, but I don't think that automatically makes this change bad for game health. My expectation is that the class will be powerful now. Will it be too powerful? Was there a better change to make? We were shooting for Rogue to hit a 50% win rate. We thought we needed Edwin to get there. Obviously, we can always revert him in the future if need be. We'd like to be able to take the occasional stab at spicy changes like this, which reinforce the identity of a class, and if the feedback is ultimately that players don't like it, we're happy to pivot. So, would they rather leave Rogue dead or take a chance? Now, I don't know if it's a binary choice, if there was a way to put power in other cards, if there was a way to find other places to draw, but looking at the options that Rogue has, I'm not sure where you do it. Like, would an Octobot Revert make Field Contact better? We're not putting Field Contact to 2. We're not doing that. It's absolutely not. No way. That card is 0 mana off a Shadow Step. And I don't even know if the resources are there anyways. I think you would just end up with the same problem with these chain draw cards. I don't know where Rogue has other draw to buff besides what they did. Like, Shroud can't get cheaper.
They don't have spells, so they can't use multicaster.
And if anyone tries to tell me
other
double
than
cross with a straight face, just like, I'm going to laugh at you. Just know.
The thing with Field Contact, right, was having a bunch of cheap battle cries / combos. And there's just not that same density of 1 mana battle cries and combos in Rogue right now. No Penflinger, of course, but also no Aug Merchants, right? That was an entire cycle of 1 mana 2/1 deal a damage things that both helped you with activating your Octobot and just being a battle cry for Field Contact. So not having any of those to go with it makes it a lot harder to get that draw engine going.
Yeah, you'd be relying on like Backstab and SI7 extortion and stuff like that, and that
those don't draw you
Oh,
cards on Field Contact.
No, I'm talking to activate. Yeah, they don't draw you for card. Yeah, I'm saying to activate Octobot, but yeah, those don't do that and draw you a card off of Field Contact at the same time. Yes.
I don't know what else they could have done, but Edwin was already pretty strong. I played him in a lot of decks. He was fine in Quest Rogue when he drew 1 card, and when he got to go off, it's a very satisfying card to play. But he does a lot of very Stormwindy things. He was in Deadmines. It's when it works, it's just like draw and play and draw and play and draw and play and draw and play and draw and play. I don't know. Make Door of Shadows Infuse 1? Maybe that would have been better. I don't really know what to do.
I mean, maybe there's just like some sort of like just a core set problem with Rogue, right? Because like Rogue feels like where Shaman and Priest used to be, where it was they were always teetering on this line of either just unplayably bad, and I don't think Rogue was there, but unplayably bad or broken, and there was like no in between, right? And Rogue seems to be that way. Like we've had 2 buffs now and maybe it's just the buff philosophy or whatever that took Rogue from being underperforming to a meta warping deck. I'm not going to say the best deck in the format, but I think we can agree that Miracle Rogue as it stands now is meta warping to some extent.
Yeah. It is absolutely meta warping now. It's Rogue over Wild Pawn Knoll has been either busted or not or unplayable, except for, it's important to note, in Voyage, after the 3/5 change, it was the most popular deck in Legend and maybe a top 10 deck. People played the crap out of it because they want to, because Rogue is always overrepresented at higher ranks, just the way that Paladin is underrepresented. But it was barely tier 2, but it was the most popular deck at Legend. Not crazy popular, it was 11% of the metagame from the last report I looked at. But it was air quotes healthy in terms of representation. I mean, it still did a lot of jackpot trickster things, which I'm not upset that that's mostly gone. I don't think that any of us are. But there have been plenty of times where Rogue has been fine. Just also there are a lot of times in recent memory, Stormwind forward, where it was super busted. In Barons Rogue was one of my favorite Rogue decks ever, and it was totally fair. Like it was a 50% deck that scaled with play skill, but was never dominant. It was just really popular.
This was the Alex Straza...
Tenwu Alex,
yeah, the Tenwu Alex deck, yeah.
Knoll is hard to get right and really powerful. It's also really popular, and Rogue is really popular. But they printed some other things for Rogue this year that didn't really land all that well. Pirate Rogue is very linear, and it turns out Vilespine Slayer not good enough anymore. And Secrets the way Secret Rogue was done this time, I don't think that anyone is really like everyone's forgotten about it already. It's not even worth complaining about because it's just not a thing.
I'm annoyed about it because the sketchy or whatever the name of the 2-drop that discovers a secret sometimes gives me rogue secrets and I'm tempted to take double cross. And that card is usually 2 mana. You know, when your opponent uses up all their mana, burn 2 cards from your opponent. That's usually what that card does when I play it. But yeah, I don't know what it is with, because it feels like rogue is harder to get, right? And maybe it's just because like people really like it, so they're going to like abuse it when it's at least moderately playable. And maybe it's just that like some of the ways that it wins tend to feel worse to some people, myself included. Like I don't love that that they're building more APM stuff into Hearthstone again in general, right? I mean, we've talked about this on the show, I'm sure, too, like, you know, especially with connectivity things and you know, and different, you know, different deck, you know, manual dexterity levels and whatever. You know, a deck that is requiring you to play as many cards as that is in a turn, you know, it was I feel like we thought that we got past that when Garrett Rogue, you know, rotated out. And, you know, I mean, that's not going to be anything related to the buffs, more so just the fact that they printed cards that say, you know, that do things based on the number of cards you played in a turn.
I don't think you have to play that many in this particular rogue. I mean, sometimes on an Edwin turn, but usually you're not going nuts, given that it's not the coins version.
Yeah.
Like, I don't usually see ghosts that even hit double-digit stats. And most Necroblades are like 8 on the high end. So, I mean, that just means 9 cards, including Draka. I guess the only issue in terms of time is if you are spending a bunch of it to think about what you're going to do first. So I think you need to be kind of considering what you're going to do on the opponent's turn, and then once you know, okay, this is the pop-off turn, you just need to start doing stuff.
Yeah. It's when I look at the difference in APM between last year and this year, I think they've made a lot of moves in the right direction, and the most APM heavy deck in the format before the rogue change was Naga Priest, right? Probably the Naga Priest.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Which, you know, and generally Naga Priest isn't crazy, but it's still like more demanding than your average deck. Yeah. Rogue, it does absolutely have a lot of math right now. It did before the Edwin buff. I agree that they don't want to go crazy with the APM stuff. And I do think there is value to this playstyle, which is why I liked it before the Edwin buff. And I was frequently making 5/5s and 5/3 weapons off the Draka and the Sinstone Graveyard. And it felt powerful but fine, right? Like, you would just inch your way to a lethal that you had to work really hard for. And I gave up on playing a lot of the deck before the Edwin change because it was too much work to inch over the line. And now it is not enough work. It just slam your cards down on the right, play the Edwin as soon as you can, and then either step him or go in. And it doesn't feel quite the same. I do think the general playstyle is exactly what I'm looking for as a rogue, but I don't like it when it's this easy. I don't like it when it's this uninteractive too. It's all stealth and damage. Like, all of it is stealth and damage.
This is like what I was saying about Kael'thas last week, right? Like, that I don't mind Kael'thas existing, but I kind of want whatever the combo is going to be with him to be a little bit more complicated than Bran plus whatever, right? Like, because it's just a little bit, it just feels too easy. But yeah, and I get where you're going with that. And maybe like if you're not shadow stepping Edwin, right? Like it always goes back to Shadow Step, right? Where Shadow Steps always seems to be the villain of the piece. But like if you're not Shadow Stepping Edwin, now that's 1 mana, right? And that's that feels, something about that feels wrong. But you know,
that was the thing that stood out to be the most just upon seeing the change and not even seeing it in action was, yeah, just okay, now when we Shadow Step Edwin, it's only 1. That's pretty crazy. But Edwin does not have stealth, so it gets frozen by Sanctum. I'm all right.
It's Edwin is the easiest card to deal with for the things that you two are doing, and decks that don't have an easy time dealing with Edwin don't exist right now.
Yeah.
It is absolutely meta warping, and I do think the main problem is the play pattern. Like, it's not, is this deck reliable and consistent? It's, when you lose, what could you have done? And a lot of times, a lot of people are going to say, not very much. I do think this isn't going to be as pronounced as Garrote Rogue, but I do think lower than 10x MMR, I'm not sure this deck exists. Or at least it is nowhere near as powerful. It is challenging. It is challenging to play, challenging to execute. I talked to a lot of people that are just still doing their climb at whatever MMR they are. A lot of people just don't see this at all. They have not seen this deck, or they've seen it one time.
Yeah. Though I do wonder if like the way that the meta is being warped is kind of overshadowing the rest of the buffs, right? Because like the things that are good against big stealth minions are going to be good against Silverhand recruits that are buffed. They're going to be good against big enrage minions, right? To some extent, they're going to be good against like the minions that are coming off the relics from Demon Hunter. So like it's the fact that those kinds of decks are what's becoming popular to deal with Rogue is also kind of holding down the rest of the buffs that they made.
Yep. So their next balance window is going to be in about a month. It is going to be on the September 13th is what I'm projecting. It's about every 2 weeks. They alternate major changes with balance windows. So on the 30th is when I expect to see the Battlegrounds new stuff, whatever that is. That's going to be the start of the new Battleground season. It's always the 0.2 patch. It's always a month after the main one. That's what I'm expecting, and that means on September 13th, the next time I will see a major patch, which should be also 2 weeks before the mini set on September 27th. Possible that goes a little bit later into October 4th, but possible it doesn't. So there is a possibility, if they want to, but a distant one, that they could push to have a tweak, which would probably be an Edwin reversion, into the patch on Tuesday the 30th. Because that patch is not finalized yet. It's not at the door, but they really try to avoid content changes on any kind of major patches. If they're looking to revert one card to prior functionality, it might be possible to do. I wouldn't plan on it. I don't know if it's egregious enough to need it, but I do know that the play pattern sucks to face. Speaking as someone that has played a lot of this deck and played a lot against this deck, I do think that it sucks to face. So, I hope they're able to sneak it in. I really do. If they're not, then we'll deal with this for another month. I don't think it is the worst Meta Tyrant we've ever seen, but I don't even know if it's a Meta Tyrant, but I do know that people will complain about it and will play less until it's changed, if they wait.
And something that I would like to add is people will feel differently about this kind of stuff, but for me, in terms of Rogue Stone or Shaman Stone that we just had, I'm far preferring the Rogue, and that is because it has clear enemies and weaknesses and ways to beat it. Now, the Shaman, it was less polarized overall, but it also, that meant that it felt like it could beat everything. So there was no clear, okay, if I really don't want to lose to Shaman, I can play this, because it still had a pretty good shot against you. With the Rogue, the things that clearly beat it really, really beat it, at least from the Priest perspective.
Oh, yeah.
The deck I'm playing, I don't think is as polarizing, but I do feel like Freezes and Alibi are pretty solid against it. So
Alibi is very solid.
I see what you did there.
You know what?
See,
I can't have Ice Block. Give me this one.
We're just a bad influence on you, and we're gonna corrupt you one way or the other.
Anyway, so I feel like I'm more able to attack this meta than I was able to with the prevalent shamans before.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not unhappy because I'm playing Priest and I'm winning games. So, like, from my perspective, but I know that I am the degenerate human who, you know, is not typical in that regard, right?
Hang on. So, I think we're all at fault here, Wicked. In this particular instance, we've got you on just massive board clears until people give up, Hat playing Edwin, and then me playing, 2 to 4 solid alibis in a game. So
So
freeze
Murloc
the
Holes
game,
would
then
find
freeze
us
your
all
face.
guilty.
Yeah, it's and the thing that I am the most concerned about with what Rogue is doing, it's not just format warping, it is turn warping. So many games come down to, here's a narrow window. Do you have the card that beats me, in which case you win, and do you not, in which case I win? The games play out a little bit more nuanced than that, but if you have the Shadow Word Ruin, the Rogue is done. Now, the Priest matchup is the most polarizing. Druid's a lot closer. Mage, I think if you build it to farm it like Nails did with double Viper and double all the free stuff, like, yeah, you can beat it pretty consistently, but most people aren't. Most matchups that are bad here are in the 40% range. And overall, this deck's win rate is not a power outlier. Overall, if I look at Diamond through Legend, since the patch, Miracle Rogue is 10th. 10th place. Right? If I look in the last one day, it is worse. 12th place. At Legend, it is way better. In the last one day, it is 4th place. In the last 3 days, it is 4th place. Since the patch, it is 4th place. It scales a lot with play skill. But it's not a power outlier, but the way the play patterns go, the way that it warps the meta, the polarity here, not just with games, but with cards. Like with specific cards that you have to have on time. I think that's unpleasant enough that I would expect to see a change here. The question is, how fast do they move? Do they move with emergency timing, which puts more pressure on the team, even though it is just one card in a patch that normally has no card? That's not nothing. That's a lot. Do they move at that pace, which puts it at August 30th, or do they move at the normal pace, which puts it at September 13th? Because I don't envision this deck staying the way it is, even though it's not necessarily a win rate outlier, just because it's not fun to have this in the game the way it is.
Yeah, and I mean, you can kind of learn a lot from, we'll talk about, Grandmasters, but Grandmasters is last hero standing this week, right? If Rogue is broken, then there will be a lot of 3-0s.
Yeah.
With Rogue, sweeping. From what I watched today, that was not necessarily the case. But that might inform their decision as far, because if they need to lock it in by the 30th, if we're going by the last patch, then they need to lock it in by Tuesday. So they'll have been able to watch, GM and see, is it sweeping more often than not? If it is, then yeah, obviously, then they're probably going to try to get it in for the 30th. It doesn't seem to be performing that way. So I wouldn't be surprised if I wouldn't be surprised either way, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I could see an argument for them just, undoing it. I could also see an argument for them saying it's not that bad that it can't wait until a normal balance patch window.
Yeah, I think it's really going to depend on what the data says and then what production says. If it is worth, disrupting the patch deployment process, because this call will be made on Monday, one way or another, or at least will be requested on Monday. They will look at the dashboard the second they get to the office. They will see, is this a problem that needs to be addressed right now? And then they will ask production by lunch that day, and then we'll see if we can get into the patch, and they'll decide. But I would guess more that Rogue is banned, and then we might see some Druid sweeps, because Druid's pretty powerful. I think there's a lot of that. We'll see what happens, though. So, that is the patch news, and a bit of, Dexplanation's preamble. There were a lot of BG's changes. Again, we don't have the time or the expertise to go over these here, but there are a bunch. If you were tired of getting blown up by Ysera and Chroma Wing, they changed that. There are a bunch of other interesting adjustments / reworks to heroes. But, check out BG's for a little bit. I am expecting a major BG's patch on the 30th if they are in line with what they have done in previous expansions. I will note, overall, in terms of meta patch conversation, we've talked about the pace of changes being a lot. I did the numbers. Since May 19th of this year, there's been a miniset, a Renathal, which might as well have been a miniset by himself, an expansion. But also in that time, there have been 59 total balance changes. 59. Now, many of those are changes and then reversions, Tidal Revenant, Battleborn Vanguard, whatever. Many of those have been buffs, some of which have landed, some of those have not. Not all of these have been relevant. For those of you playing along at home, you might say, wow, that's a lot of changes. Was Ajaran Scavenger into Blood Scent Vilefin? How relevant was that change to you? Because you probably don't remember what those cards are, do you? I had to look them up. That's the Murloc that it shuffles. It goes in the bottom of your deck when it dies, and it gives all Murlocs everywhere +1/+1. I think the first one buffs your hand, and then Vilefin dredges a Murloc, and if it and makes you pay health for it.
Those used to be 1 more mana.
They were both reduced by a mana. For the Murloc Warlock players out there, Mad at Arms is in the chat. Everybody else, just a reminder, sometimes buffs don't hit, so the numbers can be misleading. But I will say that for me personally, this change felt different. Because they didn't delete any decks except Celestial, which is fine. And all the other decks are still okay. They're just a little different, but it really feels changes. And the buffs were making decks that people were already trying just worth continuing to try, but they weren't format changing, and nothing really got invalidated. I think when looking back, the audience that the audience is most disrupted by changes when you have light engagement with the game, or at least light engagement by our standards. If you're listening to me talk, you do not have light engagement. You listen to other people talking about a game that you can't currently play because you're driving or working. That is more than your typical person engages with a video game. This is not a judgment. We're glad you're here. Trust me, like, we're way beyond that. But it's, if you are time constrained in your time in the Hearthstone game, and then you log in and the deck you were playing before doesn't function anymore, that is the problem. That is the pain point. When you didn't get to play very much, then you log back in, the thing that you were doing before just doesn't happen anymore. That sucks. That didn't really happen for anybody today with this patch, this week. Like, again, Celestial Druid players, but I think they knew that their time was numbered. And also, I just can't imagine anyone that's like, I only get to play 3 games in the weekend. Let's fire up some Celestial and just take that phone and just swipe them away. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm painting with too broad a brush. But I haven't heard a lot of
Also, they deserve to be upset for enjoying that deck. And I speak as somebody who used to enjoy that deck.
That was a long time ago now.
Yes.
But otherwise, like, I think about, when we think about the changes that were really disruptive in Voyage, nerfing Drekthar, cool, we're all right. Dragonbane Shot, Quest Hunter was really bad for a while until people rebuilt it, and really until Renathal. Demon Hunter seemed unplayable until 2 weeks later when it super wasn't. Then there was the mini set, which changed a lot of things. Then there were more changes, which that round of change, nerfing Spitelash Siren was a big one. Naga Mage would not be overpowered right now. Would absolutely not be overpowered right now. You could play Naga Mage. Maybe they just didn't want Naga Mage to have access to Solid Alibi. I don't know. But I don't think that Naga Mage would be too much right now. Pirate Warrior getting deleted again. Smite getting put to 6. I mean, I'm not super upset that Smite isn't around as much anymore, but a lot of people played a lot of Pirate Warrior for a long time. And they had to make it less popular. But anyone that logged in to play some Pirate Warrior, just like, oh, this deck completely sucks now. So that's where I think the pain points really come up. This patch was a lot of changes in terms of number, but I don't feel like it was anywhere near as disruptive.
Well, I think it also kind of goes to back to the discussion of individual cards versus packages, right? Because like you're reading off some Murloc Warlock cards that are all there as a package, but like here some other cards that were changed in that patch that were buffed in that patch: Gilag, Karya Felsoul, Whirlpool, Blackwater Behemoth, Harpoon Gun, Pet Collector, right? Like cards that were more standalone, like they fit in packages sort of, but those are more standalone cards than part of packages. Those were more impactful. But when you have some of these packages, Serpent Wake, another one, right? I mean, that is kind of a package, but that's the package of Naga, right? So Tooth of Nefarian too, right? And you could argue that like some of these are part of packages, some of them aren't. But like when the whole package isn't good enough, then you have to buff the whole package, right? And that's harder. That results in more changes, right? Because now we're talking about changing, 3 or 4 Enraged Warrior cards rather than just like one card that maybe you'd have to buff. And also, if that package sucks, even after buffing it for whatever reason, if that deck isn't right for the meta, it doesn't matter how much you buff it. You can buff all those cards and they're probably still not going to matter. They might matter later, right? Like curses have kind of gone in and out. Or maybe Murloc Warlock's just never going to be there. Or maybe it's going to have to be after rotation. It's going to be good enough, right? Like we had, like, I'm going to go all the way back to like Magnetic, right? In Boomsday, which was like a joke when it was printed. Like it was Ziliax and that was it. That was the only Magnetic card that mattered until rotation. And then Magnetic was like one of the premier, one of the major mechanics in that standard year after that rotation, when the other more powerful stuff rotated out.
Was it Magnetic or was it Ziliax?
It was Rocket Launcher on Venom.
Oh, Venomizer Rock. I forgot about that.
Oh yeah.
Right. It's
Favorite
Bomb
interactions.
Hunter. Bomb
Yep.
Hunter. Right. Man.
Yeah. And also, like just Warrior being Warrior with Dr. Boom. But, that was kind of always low key busted, and then all of a sudden then rotation happened and Dr. Boom was really good. But so like that, I guess that, and I don't know if we solve that here, right? We're not going to, and we're not the designers of the game, but I think that kind of the package design, designing the package means that the cards individually live and die by the power of the package and the power of the deck that package goes in.
Yeah, I mean, Enraged Warrior was pretty loose in terms of the boundaries there. We're talking like relics are really, really clear as to what they're doing and how they're doing it. And Rage Warrior is a much more eclectic combination of cards that because the mechanic is it's what Warrior already does, and there are support tools for it. But you can damage your minions however you want to damage your minions, right? It's almost like Synergy with Frenzy, which came out 4 expansions ago. And I'm going to say it right now, I am unconvinced that Paladin didn't work. There are a lot of Paladin experiments that look very promising right now that are super underplayed at Legend because Legend players love Rogue and don't play Paladin. They just don't. There are like 3 people out there that like Paladin. Glee, you do, Edelweiss.
And
Glee
Noodle
does
Swoop.
on your team. Noodle Swoop, Charon, the French player, or does he go by Sharon? I don't know. I think Charon because Hades. But there are Tars posted a Paladin deck that was doing really well. Kibler went like 30-8 with Quest Paladin that topped out at 4.
I've had other people take my Paladin deck and go like 9-0, 10-0. I mean, but again, that deck loses to the things that beat Rogue right now, right? So like as people are targeting Rogue, that's collateral damage. No pun intended. That's a Hunter card anyway.
Yes. And really, like, also a lot of classes are being held back. Not by Rogue, by Denathrius. And this is something that was also called out pretty specifically in Aleko's Twitlonger. The Bran, Kael'thas, Denathrius combo, these 3 neutral legendaries have been very effective against across multiple classes and are already causing some frustration among players. These cards are very much on our radar, and I think the odds that 1 or more of these cards eventually gets changed is high. That said, we felt it was premature to nerf marquee cards from the new expansion, which are largely accomplishing their goals of being exciting and ending games. That said, we're worried about the speed at which these cards are closing out games, and the play against frustration that is clearly present here. We're going to wait and see how they do in the new meta before making changes. September 13th, I'm marking my calendar, something's going to die. I don't know what it is, but something's going to be done. Because if you're playing a board-based deck like Paladin, and then they get a Denathrius going or Bran killed Denathrius, even if it doesn't kill you, you have to deal with a 10-10 lifesteal. And all the work you did all game is undone. So I think it's more the pressure point of, I have to be able to deal with the early game. And then I have to be able to kill them before they get Denathrius going. That window is narrow and hard to do without damage from hand. I will say Okani helps a lot. Like, the best Enraged Warrior list I've seen has Okani in it because you can stop the swing turn.
If you know what's coming.
It's
Yeah,
if or if
yeah.
you're going to kill them if they do something that turn,
Yeah, fair.
and you stop
Yeah.
it. But yeah, it's not hard to figure out when they know it's coming because it's 10 mana or 9 mana. Like when
Yeah.
it's coming because they either do it that turn or they die.
Yeah.
I
mean,
wonder
Go
how
ahead.
different of a card Denathrius becomes without lifesteal. If it is just a, win the game or board clear with a big body, but no longer a stabilization tool. Like, I don't know if that kills the card. It's certainly a very different card. It has to be played very differently. But I wonder what it would look like without lifesteal.
I mean, it looks like Cthulhu, right? I mean, that's basically what it is at that point. And
Yeah.
Cthulhu was played like old Cthulhu, not Cthulhu the Shattered, because that's a whole different discussion. But like old, old Cthulhu, that was a finisher for some decks, and it eventually pared down to just Warrior after a while. Just because that was the only one that could really live long enough to do it and get it big enough. But I would say Druid probably still is going to play it. Druid most of the time I don't think cares about the lifesteal because of Bran and because of the ease of getting Bran out and not needing the Kael'thas to get the Bran out. I think there are other decks that would use it a little bit more flexibly. Like Mage is more likely to use it as lifesteal. So like some of the other decks that are using it, like when you have Kael'thas, Bran, Denathrius in Imp Warlock, not even Curse Imp Warlock, but like straight on aggro Imp Warlock, like that's something's a little bit overtuned there, right?
Yeah.
Because like if that deck has time, can find 3 slots for those 3 cards, there's a problem.
Well,
We'll
Zoo
say at
is
least-
not playing Bran. Zoo doesn't play Bran. Zoo does Kael'thas
It does
Murloculus.
Miraculous. Yeah.
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 And Casey's most recent list of Druid cut Kael'thas because it just gets to 13.
'Cause you don't
because
need
you
it.
can just do that and just whatever. I think it's Denathrius. It's just Denathrius because I'm thinking about Bran. People talk about Bran a lot. There's a discussion in our chat right now about Bran, and Forest Bates reminded me of they nerfed a lot of battle cries. They nerfed School Teacher, though I think that was just kind of everywhere. And also they over nerfed it. Title Revenant, but From the Depths was along for the ride. Mage stuff sometimes, but Bran I think is cool and fun and always stands out because it's along with the thing that kills you. But every time that I lose this in this format to something late game that's frustrating, it's Denathrius. And the lifesteal, you're right, Edelweiss. The lifesteal is such a huge deal.
Like, I feel like there's a couple ways you could do it. One would be Denathrius starts at 0 instead of 5. I'm not as keen on that because it just makes it even more like just Druid because then it really cares about that you can infuse it the fastest.
And it incentivizes you to keep it in your opener in every matchup.
Yeah. Yeah, and Infuse 2 would be the same argument.
Right. But without the lifesteal, I think just across the board, you lose more games as these slower classes because if it's not outright killing your opponent and it doesn't stabilize you, then it's a card that stays in your hand and it dies you die with it in your hand.
Yeah.
But there are still plenty of times where I died to it and the lifesteal didn't matter, right? They were at a low life total, but I just died because it was infused enough or it got brand, whatever. So I think removing the lifesteal would be something that just makes it worse at one of those things. I forget what you call this, right? But evaluating a card based on when you're behind at parity
quadrants.
and when you're
Quadrant
ahead.
theory.
And Denathrius right now, like as long as it is infused reasonably, kind of performs well at all of those things.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's...
I mean,
Certainly wouldn't brand.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I would like to not get hit for 104, which has happened to me, right? Like the numbers just get so big. Something like Druid in particular, right? Like there's something, and maybe this is just me as a control player, and maybe other people don't feel this, but like the fact that like every deck can be like Baron's Warlock, right? Baron's Ticketus Warlock. That's what, like, every deck has the potential to do that, right? Except actually
with a higher
like,
win
good.
rate. Yeah.
Right, exactly. Because like every game against Druid feels like Baron's Priest into Ticketus Warlock. Because I know that I'm going to do, unless I do something very specific, it doesn't really matter what I do because I'm going to die to a specific thing that I don't really have any way to get around, right? So it's like, but every deck can be that, and I don't always know when that's going to happen because, again, I know you say that they're not running Brand, but this one was running Brand. I got Kayle, Brand, and Athreus by an Imp Warlock and died from 40 as Quest Priest, right?
That is gross and
like,
funny.
I know nobody shed any tears for me, right? I don't deserve your sympathy. I'm okay with that. But even then, right? Like that shouldn't happen as wide of a array of decks as it does in this meta, in my opinion.
Yeah. Removing the lifesteal too, just thinking about that, it's making him a combo piece and a game ender instead of a stabilization tool / also combo piece and game ender. You can fire him out for 10 and end the game against a lot of decks the same way that you can kill from 80, whatever you want to do. I think that it's more interesting when it's maybe a bunch of arcane missiles to not be dead, or a game-ending tool that you have to work for on like turn 12, turn 15, whatever. But the healing part, I play a lot of minion decks. I want to play minions on curve. When my stuff dies, it's fine. When you undo the work that I did all game, that's not fine. And Denathrius does both. So I think that it becomes much more interesting if you just take the lifesteal off the card totally. Yeah. That really changes the dynamic of it. Because when you throw it out as a desperation move, you also have to not be dead on board or dead from hand. It's really changed the dynamic of it.
Or even if you just gave the lifesteal to the battle cry but didn't give the body lifesteal, like if you made it a minion that you could at least ignore when it's on board, I don't know. I'm just like there because the problem is also like once they've done that, then you also have you have to sink a whole bunch of. I'm thinking about like playing Quest Hunter now, right? Because Quest Hunter, all the damage is hitting my face. I don't have any minions. I don't care about it. But now I have to take 10 of my damage that I need. That they've already undone a lot of that to sink into this 10/10, because as soon as it hits me in the face, then it's sending me back even further, and I'm already behind at that point, right?
I think in many instances it is the battle cry doing the lifesteal that is the issue more than the body. I mean, it's insult to injury, but I think it's cleanest to just remove lifesteal at all, right? Make it
But I think you make it unplayable if you do that.
I don't think you do, because it still just kills opponents so much of the time.
It gives decks like Druid that don't have any burn from hand. You still play Brandon, Athreus, and Druid. It just doesn't bail you out the same way. I think it's interesting as a board clear you have to work for that can upgrade into a game ender. I don't mind Theotar still being effective against it when decks build around it. I think it becomes pretty similar to current version of Kazakhstan, where like it's a lot of work, it'll end the game, but it won't protect you if you play it when you're behind. That's the part that matters.
And when I think of the Snowfall Guardian change, that's kind of what they did in another way to the card, right? They said, okay, this card
doesn't do everything.
You. It doesn't need to also kill the opponent. While Denathrius kills the opponent, it doesn't need to also protect you. Like, basically, if you remove the Desperation Denathrius for heal, I think people win more games by just being aggressive.
Yeah. And you can play things like Dude Paladin.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, Desperation Denathrius is the name of my next indie band. Second of all, I am starting to come around to maybe the idea of maybe it is Infuse 2, right? Because then you're actually like investing a fair amount into it. Like Druid can still have that. Druid's going to abuse this no matter what, right? Like you can't really get around that. But maybe it's a little bit more reasonable as like it's going to clear a board and maybe get you back out of the danger zone, but it isn't actually going to kill your opponent most of the time. Or if it's killing your opponent, then it's, only doing X amount of damage.
See, that I think does probably kill the card. Maybe not for Druid, but
I guess it's a matter of what you're doing. Like, is it a game ender or is it a recovery tool, right? It needs to pick one, right?
Steve,
I think that's,
I understand you. It is very difficult to convince the priest that healing is the problem. I understand, but the healing is the problem.
Okay, fair enough.
I think if the game has lasted long enough to the point and you have not mutinist or theatard the Denathrius from your import lock opponent, I'm sorry, but sometimes you miss. And
Sometimes
I think
that
game was an outlier.
That I was just again, I don't expect anybody to cry any tears for me. I deserved everything that I got in that game, but still.
It's curious, it's interesting to think about, and honestly, like, Denathrius needs a play rate nerf. I don't think that he's overpowered, but I think he homogenizes games, and it is holding back a lot of the minion-based strategies, the same way that, like you all have been talking about, you need to be really, really good against really big minions really quick right now, and so if you're trying to make moderately big minions moderately quick, then that's less likely to happen. It's like you're going to get caught in the crossfire, but also a lot of games having a big lifesteal AoE at the, on turn 9, turn 10, whatever, is unpleasant. And while there are decks that have Bran and Denny, and while there are decks that have Kayle and Denny, there is no deck that has Bran, Kayle, and no Denathrius. No deck that's cutting that piece.
Like, I have had games with my Frozen Touch mage where I didn't want to have too many minions in play at a certain point because I could solid alibi to deny lifesteal. But if I had too much stats of minions in play, they would gain too much life just from killing my minions and get out of range of my burn. And like, that's just weird.
We're leaving Denathrius right there, huh? We're just not going to touch it? Okay. So, I don't know what they're going to do, but they're going to do something most likely. When a balance designer says the chance of these cards changing is high, that's not if, that's when. So, this is not Alexstrasza and Barons where, like, it was popular and it's going to hold on. Like, no. This is actually, like, game ending and they want it to not keep happening. So, if it keeps happening, expect them to make it not happen. And finally, our last news item, hour 38 minutes. Gia joining the Battlegrounds design team. Hooray! Also, as mentioned before earlier in the show and multiple times in the history of this show, Gia's good at everything. But she is moving to California at the end of this month. Her work visa got accepted. She's gonna make Battlegrounds. It's amazing. She's amazing.
And she's gonna go to Disneyland with Korra, apparently.
Yes! I believe her response was Insta Disney. So yeah, she rules. It's great. And she is going to help make Hearthstone better in a different way than she has already. So congratulations, Gia. You're awesome. Edel, you've known for a while, I'm guessing.
A little bit, yeah. It was part of the conversation when I talked to Gia. So, yeah, I'm really happy for her because, I mean, as you say, she's just so great at everything, and I know having something stable at a certain point in your life is really nice, and so I'm sure she's been looking forward to this for quite some time. I think she actually wanted to live with Korra, but of course, Korra and her brother are gonna be together. So, yeah, it's gonna be super great. All the more reason for me to be hopeful for like a DreamHack Irvine or something next year that I can go visit people.
I bet.
Or maybe even a BlizzCon. Like, that would be...
Yeah. Now you're getting crazy.
They want one. We'll see.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I mean, it's also worth saying, like, this is around the time in BG's lifespan where, like, Chalky went to join, like, the final design team for Constructed, right? Like then that's something that's kind of come up in a lot of conversations about BGs for a while. They need somebody who's like a high level BGs player to kind of, come in and give a competitive point of view to some of the design changes. And I mean, I can't think of anybody better than Gia for that, honestly. So
yeah,
From a
be very good for the game.
purely selfish perspective, of course, that makes it, just a little bit easier for me to maybe work my way into having regular casting stuff. So we'll see if the Highlander rule of women in Hearthstone casting applies.
As I have faith in you, and we will miss Gia. And also,
Yes.
maybe they can get some other women on the casting team, but
Would be
figure it out.
cool.
Yeah.
Also,
it would
she
be.
is finishing out the year before starting with PGs, so she's going to do a couple casting things. I think both of us are hoping that maybe there's a chance we'll get to cast together before she switches over to BGs.
Oh, I'm very excited. Yes, I hope so. All right. That was the news section. Now on to the second section of the podcast where we talk about the Masters Tour.
It's the Grand Tournament!
Yeah, so with all of this going on, we had a Masters Tour this past weekend. Masters Tour Murder at Castle Nathria, or just MT Murder, as you were. We had an APAC winner for the first time in quite a while. It was actually an all APAC finals, all Japanese final. Tensoku versus Glory. Glory, one of the previous world champs. Tensoku has been playing in competitive Hearthstone for forever, for a really long time. So it was really good to get to see him get a win. His lineup was Imp Warlock, Thief Rogue, Spooky Mage, and Control Shaman. Glory also had Imp Warlock, Thief Rogue, and Control Shaman, but had the Wig Priest instead of the Mage. This was a much longer event than some of the more recent Masters Tours, and I think the Control Shaman mirrors were predominantly to blame for that. Those tend to take a little bit. And that was something that you tended to see a lot because, Control Shaman was banned a lot during the tournament, 40%, but that means it's sick that, some percentage of the time it was left up. So when those were left up together, those matchups took a while. There were some oddball decks at the top that were low play rate, like Murloc Shaman and Quest Priest. Quest Priest was not nearly as good before it was still playable, but it wasn't nearly as good before the balance patch that it was after. This was also the debut of Lambie Rogue, which we've talked about quite a bit on the show already. That was something that was being kept fairly quiet. The Pony Dojo was definitely on top of that from their practices earlier in the week, but the rest of the field hadn't really found out about that until the event. But there was a decent representation of that deck, and it also performed well, over 50%. And also, Donkey of Donkey.top fame got to the top 8, which was something that I think, collectively we were all rooting for Donkey to go as far as he could. And really kind of I'm just going to say, as a fellow data nerd, was thrilled to see him in a top 8 on stream. And, I'm really looking forward to seeing, because he's improved steadily each time that he's competed. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he's going to be able to do in future Masters Tours. But it was great getting, the whole community together. Everybody was behind Donkey that weekend, hoping that he was going to be able to take it all the way. So, and Edel, you were casting this, including the finals. Anything that caught your eye that you wanted to call out, or that kind of stuck with you over the course of the weekend?
Yeah, Donkey was my caster pick, really more picking with my heart than anything else, because I really wanted them to go the distance. They made it to top 8 at least, very exciting. But it was interesting to see how people approached this, because while Shaman was clearly very powerful, a lot of people decided, hey, Shaman's powerful, but while it can beat anything, it also can lose to a bunch of stuff because it's not super polarized. It might have, 53% versus something, or 56, nothing crazy. So people felt like, you know what, I'm going to see if I can sneak by that. And they focus sometimes more on banning stuff like Imp Warlock or Druid. And it seemed like a lot of folks, that was kind of the direction it was. They would ban one of those and try and target the other. So one of the lineups that did pretty well was, including Naga Priest and Imp Warlock to go after people's druids. And some other people, I think, tried to go up against Imp Warlock, and that didn't always work out. But lots of different versions of Imp Warlock, too. I think to the point that it was a little bit confusing, where some things got classified as Curse Warlock, but they were sort of Imp Warlock with curses.
No, they were all the Curse Warlocks had imps in them. I think all but 4.
Well, yes, but there was a difference between, like, were you running Fiendish Circle Catastrophe, or were you running straight up Imp Curve with curses added? I think they were very minimal. Like 4 people brought stuff with the full, Bran, Lady Darkvein, all of that stuff. But certainly the draw engine of Fiendish Circle Impending Catastrophe was in everything.
Yeah,
but
I'm trying to get my because I remember calling this out in the thread that I did, so I'm trying to pull that out of the numbers. But yeah, there was everything was running Catastrophe, Mischievous Imp, and even Imp King. Oh no, this is Imp Warlock. Sorry, that's not Curse Warlock. Everything was running Lady Darkvein, and the ones that were running Impended Catastrophe, Fiendish Circle, and Wicked Shipment. That was the small package, and then there were some that went with a bigger package of Vile Library, Mischievous Imp, Imp King Rafaam, Flustered Librarian, and
There were zoo decks with
Imp.
curses. They weren't curse decks with imps.
Yeah. I think there were, but most of them were zoo decks with curses, and then a couple of them were curses with the easy imps for draw with Catastrophe.
Yeah.
And it did seem that the zoo decks overall prevailed, but between that one that you were complaining about with Murlocula and Denathrius, right? It seemed like just going Battle Master and hitting people in the face was the way to go, and that kind of made me happy.
Yeah.
By the way, I don't mean to just say complaining about it. I played it in THL this week and won with it a bunch of times because it was gross, including, sometimes your Kael'thas doesn't need a Denathrius. Sometimes you just turn 6 Gigafin people, and that's enough. That's enough.
Yeah.
But overall, it was cool to see the ways people tried to attack that particular metagame with all the shamans, and I honestly was surprised when I realized that people weren't banning it as much as I expected, even though it was banned quite a bit.
Yeah. Also, the other thing that came out of the card level data, the list that performed best out of Control Shaman included Murloc Holmes. I can't explain it to you either.
Okay.
I don't know why. Maybe Adel, if you have some insight, but
So my best explanation is that even if you miss, you get information. And because Shaman has cards like Theotar and Mutinous for disruption purposes, sometimes you get the, okay, they have this in their hand, I should try and steal it with Theotar or eat it with Mutinous, etc. And then occasionally you just play it so late in the game that you do pick up, the extra cards, and those can be helpful in a world of Shaman mirrors.
Yeah, seems plausible. It seems better than anything I'm coming up with. Because, Murloc Holmes, best card in Shaman, who knew? Yeah. So anyway, so that was the Masters Tour last weekend. This weekend we have Grandmaster's Last Call Week 3, which is Last Hero Standing. This week's guest caster is John Bray. So he's been casting with Raven in the middle time slot. This is a much tighter distribution based on the stats that Lorinda has given us. There are no warriors, no shamans, no paladins, no demon hunters. There are 2 quest hunters. Those are the only hunters. We have 6 warlocks, 4 are cursed, 2 are imp. And then druid and rogue are in every lineup. Mages in all but 2. priest is in 10 lineups, half quest. 4 of them are Naga, and then there's always one boar priest, at least. So in this case, there's only one boar priest. We have there already has been a quest priest that full swept a match that was Fled. Fled's no longer in the tournament, but I was super happy just watching that quest priest just smack down that one matchup. But again, like as I've said, I haven't watched at all the whole day today. But when what I've watched, I haven't seen Rogue being dominant. It feels like it's definitely been a strong deck and a deck that that's been able to, perform the role of a sweeper. Because again, in Last Hero Standing, because it's been a while, I should say this because it's been a little while since we've had Last Hero Standing. The difference is that in Conquest, you have to win with each of the decks you bring. And then once you win with it, you can't play it again. In Last Hero Standing, you stay on the deck that you win with, and the player who loses that deck for the rest of the match. So it's less about having a well-rounded lineup and more like having one deck that can 3-0 and then a couple of other decks that are very polarized to take out common counters to that deck. So you're much more likely to see 3-0s and 3-2s than 3-1s, because what'll happen is that one of the sweepers wins, and then either the counter matchup wins, and then you go back and forth, or the sweeper beats what's supposed to be the counter matchup, and then they usually go 3-0 after that. So if Rogue was as dominant as it should be, then it should be beating the counter matchups and going 3-0. Hasn't seemed like that's been the case all this weekend, but I guess we'll see through the rest of the event.
We'll see. If you want to be Rogue, you can, and there are a lot of people here that really want to be Rogue. The lineups this week, you either choose to beat Rogue or beat Druid, and most people seem to be going with the. I mean, it seems to be probably about.
I've seen Rogue left up a lot. So.
Yeah, I think it's about 50-50 because Druid is pretty hard to beat too. That deck is kind of spooky, and it's not doing Celestial anymore, and it's not doing Kazakhstan anymore. It's just ramping and playing large things. It's back to Naga Giants, back to Ivus, Topior, obviously, because Topior is a crazy card. And you just kind of do stuff all game.
And if those all die, then you Denathrius them.
Yep. And Insatiable Devourers along the way, and minions all day, every day. It does druidy things. It feels very druidy. All right. Explanations? Let's go. We've already preambled explanations. This won't take long. Right?
So for this week's explanations, I just said, hey, Hat, go nuts. I am not good at these decks. The kind of rogues that I have loved best were Odd Rogue and Keleseth Rogue. So, so this is on you. I understand the game plan, right? We're trying to just make some decent size mid-game minions / weapon, and then just kind of push enough damage to go over the finish line with Tooth and Wicked Stab. Does that sound more or less correct?
Yeah, this is a very roguey deck. My feeling about Rogue is the experience of the decks that I've historically enjoyed, which this deck, if it wasn't so gross on the games that it performs, I would enjoy it. And I liked the Lambie Rogue version pre-buff because you really had to work for it. It made my head hurt, but you really had to work for it. It was all right. What you do is, in Rogue decks that I historically enjoy, like this one, you give up the first couple turns. You make it all up, because the turn that you do play, the first turn you actually play cards, you do 4 turns worth of stuff. And then over about a 3 to 4 turn window, you compress way more cards per turn than you're supposed to be able to do, and keep your opponent off balance, and you kill them. You don't disrupt them, you kill them. That's what you do. So, what happens here with this rogue list? The main power cards are cards that scale on the number of cards you play per turn. Sinstone Graveyard, Edwin, and Draka. So Sinstone Graveyard and Draka, they scale directly off the number of spells you play. Edwin scales about with number of cards that you play off of his chain ability. But before the Edwin buff, we didn't care as much about Edwin. So we played cards like Krakatoa and Shadowcrafter Scab's the hero card. You can still play the hero card if you want. Lambie still does in order to deal with Mage and Quest Priest. But most lists that I've seen don't. You top it at Null. So, stage 1. Get your Nulls to 0. If you are planning on playing Nulls for more than 0, you are against probably Zoo, Face Hunter, or Naga Priest, and you specifically just want to get them off the board, and you have enough resources to make mid-size stuff to kill them. Otherwise, every other matchup, no. 0. Get your Nulls to 0. When you get your Nulls to 0, don't play them right away. Hold them. Phase 2. Do some Broken Giant stuff. This is Sinstone Graveyard, this is Draka, this is Edwin. You want to pop off and play a bunch of stuff and get a bunch of rewards for it. Usually Sinstone Graveyard, which you can like prep Bone Spike out if you're capped on mana. If you do an Edwin turn, the reason that you really want Nulls to 0 is to make sure that you can play them off the top of Edwin chains, and so that you can cheat out Sinstone Graveyard activations quickly. Trading and getting a 3-5 down earlier is way less important than making your daggers or your ghosts bigger. So it's very, very important to make sure that the cards that feed off the number of things you play get as big as possible, because you have a limited number of chances. You have draw chains here, but this deck will run out of stuff. You are not a long game deck. You cannot overtrade. You will lose. You are not a long game deck. You have to be really disciplined. You have to put your damage where it needs to go, which is almost always face. Tooth is Nefarian. If you get stuff off of it, it can be relevant. But your damage usually needs to go face here. You need to be very precise about it, very disciplined. Make sure that you take advantage of every bit of resources that you have in those key compressed swing turns. So, phase 1, Nulls to 0. Phase 2, do a bunch of stuff. You can refuel while your Sinstone Graveyard is on cooldown. You'll wait a second, maybe cast a Shroud, maybe do whatever. And then often Edwin is like, I like to play Edwin on turn 5 usually. If I have a really big pop-off on turn 3 to make like a 7/7, 8/8 Sinstone Graveyard token, turn 4 I'll refuel, maybe Door of Shadows, maybe Shroud of Concealment, whatever. Turn 5 is when I like to go in on Edwin. Save your preps, do your Bone Spikes, whatever. You can make him really, really big. Fuel up the second activation of your Sinstone Graveyard. That's usually when I try and line them up. But if Edwin is your turn 3 play and your Nulls cost 0, go nuts. And if the first card you draw off of Edwin on turn 3 is something that's not Shadow Step that you can just play right away, if you have a Null and a Edwin and you have a Shadow Step in that situation, step the Null. Make your Edwin big. Keep him in play. You do not have to Shadow Step your Edwin. Keep him in play so you can hit your opponent with it. If it's in your hand, it can't hit the opponent. If it's in play, it can. You want to hit the opponent. If it only gets to a 5/5 or whatever, then maybe that step is better than that Edwin. If you're not confident in your hand, if you don't have the Nulls, whatever, then you can play Edwin, step him right away if that comes off the top. But you don't want that to be the primary way you play the card. Primary way you play the card, play a bunch of stuff, make a bunch of big things, hit your opponent in the face. That's what you're trying to do.
So what are we mulliganing for, sort of to that end? Like, I tend to keep Shroud of Concealment because I feel like the minions are so important and there's so few of them, so it targets specifically. But beyond that, I kind of don't know.
I assumed it was tradables or bust.
Listeners, did you hear how Edelweiss seamlessly segued my color commentary with her play-by-play? So what are you mulligan for? Love that caster skill. Big fan. And Steve provides the cuts. You two should cast together. It'd be great. So, it's both. The deck plays 1, 2, 3, 5 minions. 5 minions. Maestra, Edwin, Draka, and 2 Nulls. The Fillet Fighter, he gone. Fillet Fighter gone. We're not doing that. Krakatoa, no marine life in this deck. It's all land-based creatures now. So we do the Shroud of Concealment absolutely because it's likely to get you Edwin, and the reason that we care about Nulls being 0 is it's enhanced by a Shroud, because if you Shroud on 3 without breaking the mask, your Nulls will cost 0. And you're likely to hit Edwin or the Nulls, right? And you want to do that. So tradables will help but if you don't have tradables, if you do nothing on turn 1, nothing on turn 2, Shroud on 3, you will have drawn 5 total rogue cards. Your Nulls will cost nothing. So, very important. Shroud is great in the mulligan. Tradables are great. Nulls are good. Edwin's good. Sinstone Graveyard's good. That's pretty much it. If your hand is crazy, you can keep Draka, but usually it's bad. Usually you don't want to, but you can. So Lambie has said he keeps prep with Sinstone Graveyard, and if you have prep and coin, he keeps Draka. And he also keeps Bone Spike versus aggro. He's better than me. I trust him. I usually don't do these things, but keeping prep when you have Sinstone Graveyard does make a lot of sense to me. Tradables are helpful, but if you just wait and Shroud, that's fine too. Do not prep the Shroud. It won't discount your Knolls because the prep will break your mask and you will be sad. And card sequencing is really important here. You've got Bone Spike, you've got prep, you've got a lot of things to care about the next thing you do. Just think about the sequence here. It's very important.
Yeah. And Bone Spike is any card, not spell, like prep
Yes.
is, which is important.
So
that
you
can
can
let you get
prep
Draka
Spike
down.
Edwin, prep Spike Graveyard, all very powerful plays.
Spike is very, very goofy. Just pretty much doing a conversion so you can prep out anything you want. It was pretty funny getting to see someone prep Spike and get out a turn 6 Shadowcrafter Scabs, which, not in this list anymore, but pretty crazy some of the things you can do with that sequence.
Yep. So let's see. Talked about key turns and lines. Talked about mulligans. Let's just talk about matchups here. The better matchups that we have. If you are playing against go-wide decks that don't have taunts, you usually beat those. Zoo, Naga Priest, and Rage Warrior, if you consider that a thing. I wish it was, but I don't consider it a thing. But you beat them. But you can easily lose those matchups if you overtrade. Because remember, you don't go long. But Zoo does. If you try and trade with Zoo, they have more stuff than you, I promise. Way more. Just make a big thing they can't deal with. And that matchup is favored. Pretty favored, but difficult to play. Because sometimes you leave them with too much stuff and then they Shady Bartender and kill you. And sometimes you don't, you overtrade and then you run out of stuff and then they kill you. So you have to be exactly in the middle of making something too big for them to deal with, dodging Starfish, very important, and then also not dying when they counter pressure and refill, because they always do. So usually I think the matchups that we're hoping to see are like Zoo is one of them, Naga Priest. We don't want to see Beast Druid because they have too many taunts, and taunts are really, really, really bad for us. We do also beat Ramp Druid most of the time. The matchup is getting harder. They have Starfishes, they have Earthen Scales with Naga Giants, whatever. But we are favored in that matchup. If Big Spell Mage gets to do what it wants to do, it beats us. They don't always get to do that, but it is slightly favored for them. Nightcloak Sanctum's a pain in the butt. They also have a lot of random taunts, like Treasure Guards or whatever, just kind of a pain in the butt. They can play Viper if they want to, and we don't want to get ruined. If you were playing Spooky Mage and you want to beat Rogue, you can super do that. Play Nails' list. Double Viper, double Alibi, double Blizzard. He shaved Deathborn just because he doesn't care about killing small minions. He cares about giant minions. You care about giant minions, you want to stop them. Not that hard to do.
Grey Sage Parrots just so you can play Blizzard again.
Yeah, though that's just that's just a good thing to do anyways. Beat Zoo pretty handily. Naga Priest, pain in the butt. Quest Priest is a total nightmare for this deck. We talked about it, but Shadowward Ruin is just like 4 mana destroy target rogues, dreams. The Light It Burns is 1 mana destroy target Edwin. Bunch of silences, bunch of steely effects, taunts, healing. Light Shower Elemental is a huge buzzkill. It's really, really hard to beat Quest Priest. Possible, but really hard to do.
So why do the silences matter so much? Is it just Edwin or?
Well, they can trade your stuff off at that point.
Yeah, the deck has 5 total threats over the course of the game, if you don't count Knolls. It's got 2 ghosts per graveyard, and it's got Edwin. So silence on Edwin is a big...
the Draka weapon.
Well, yeah, that's not a minion threat though. But yeah, it's 5 minion threats.
Yeah.
So the silence lets you kill those things. And it sucks that you have to work so hard to target minions. But if you kill those 5 minions, they have Burn and Draka. And, that's not nothing. But it's not very much. So if you're able to keep up with that, the minion density, the threat density is really, really low here. The rest is all just burn. So if you have healing, if you have taunts, then you can easily deal with that, which is what Quest Priest has all this stuff. Most decks only have some of it. And, the silences aren't the biggest deal, but I mean, Steve, you can speak to it. It's nice to have them.
Silences are good for Edwin. I mean, typically, I'm not worried about being able to target the stealth minions, because there's Light Bomb, and there's Whirlpool, and there's Shadow Word Ruin, and just like the world's your oyster. Like I just kind of you could just count the number of threats on your hand, and then just make sure you're not going to die to weapon plus hand damage. And as long as you're making sure to Desperate Prayer and Gift of the Naru and whatever, like liberally, and maybe get a Light Shower Elemental down. Even, I mean, that's one of the matches where you do not care about the quest. Like, the quest is a little bit of extra card draw, because the quest is not going to matter. Like, you 100% will just run them out of stuff. But as long as you have stuff, because all the removal that you have just lines up beautifully into what the rogue's doing. All of the minions are symmetrical, so Light Bomb just clears them. The Lighted Berms will deal with everything but a Null, and even if the Null is not that big of a deal. Like, the Null's a little bit annoying, because then they can Shadow Step it to make the other things bigger, but like, you can generally avoid the Nulls. Clean the Scene also cleans those up really nicely. Those and the Maestra, that just kind of deals with all of those. It's just really, you have enough healing to outlast the stuff that you can't deal with on board. And sometimes you just take the Draco with a Theotar. Okay, well, there's a lot of your damage gone. So it just has a lot of the types of things. I'll generally just kind of, I'll even throw, I'll just condemn onto, against Rogue, because I know that the condemn doesn't matter, and just try to get through stage 1, because I usually have time to get through stage 1 of the quest before they start getting going anyway, just to kind of get, just to get the extra card draw and find the other answers, right? Just dig with Thrive in the Shadows, even just getting a Cathedral down to be able to draw a little bit more, because the only way you really lose is just not hitting the answers that you need. Like, if you miss once, if you're going to come at the king, you best not miss, right? So, like, if you miss once, you're dead. But you generally have enough answers to be able to deal with everything that they do.
Yep. I think that is a pretty good summary here of how Priest deals with it. I mean, you've both been trying different things, and Ellie, you've talked about kind of how you beat this deck. Slow them down and then kill them.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely lose if I run out of alibis and I can't kill them, right? Or out of flurries, whatever. I think that is maybe a little bit different in the slower mages, because they just don't really run out of freezes and they have 10 more life than me. So their game plan is a little different. It is more of the just run the rogue out of stuff and keep their stuff frozen forever. For me, it's more just freeze long enough until they are dead to frozen touches or pings, or Mordrish is often a great way to close out. But there are options. I think there's probably some kind of paladin build that also is good here into the rogues, because
I saw some people testing a build they called I hate rogue paladin. Like, if you just load up your deck with Righteous Defenders, like, that card is such a pain in the butt to deal with. Just annoying taunts. All the decks that beat this deck have a lot of annoying taunts, because the rogue can't play Starfish. Like, they just have to fight through your taunts. So a bunch of annoying taunts is really, really good here.
Yeah, and I mean, I've played as Nails' Mage some against that deck too, and it's like, you can just Blizzard, you can just chip away at the big minions with like successive blizzards. Like, you don't have to kill them, they just have to just not hit you in the face, and then you just kind of eventually get around to killing them once they've gotten whittled down. Like, between the blizzards and the skeletons, they just kind of chip away. It's like it's like whittling, you just kind of take off a little piece of it a little bit at a time, and eventually they go away.
And Paladin, of course, you still have Equality plus City Tax, Great Hall, fantastic.
Cariel. Light
you
Force
have
Carrier.
healing. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, if you get that down, usually that's a concede. But oftentimes it's just like, okay, well, do you want to attack with your big stealth minion? Because I got this great haul just waiting, sitting right here. Or if you do have a righteous defense or something, I mean, two cards that go well together, right? Righteous defense and it hits a protector,
Oh,
removing their thing, and now you have a big divine shield taunt.
oh, you're making me want to play Paladin, Edels. Don't do that to me.
It's great. The invitations cost 2 now. So good.
I mean, this is also the reason the Control Warrior's bad into it, right? Because like all of their removal is, and Warlock too to an extent. I mean, they're twisted together, but that's too late. Like all their removal is damage based except for Brawl, right? So like you have 2 Brawls, and that still
Control
leaves
Warrior
something
is
behind.
bad for a lot of reasons.
Right, but I tried it just seeing if maybe it would be good into that, because I mean you have a lot of control tools, but like everything's targeted, everything's damage based. The damage does, like, you don't have enough armor after they hit you with the stealth minion in order to be able to then kill it afterwards. And you know, I mean, you can run executes and stuff like that now, but then you're like, what are you doing with your life? You know, and then you've already let them hit you a couple times and get rid of the armor that you need for the rest of the stuff to work.
I think you could probably build Control Warrior to beat this deck more than you lose to it. But there is also an entire standard format besides this
you could
deck.
beat this and lose. I mean, this is like any meta warping deck, right?
It's
you can
also
build a deck to beat it and lose to everything else, but that's not really a solid strategy.
So Nomad Farmer mentioned that Mech Paladin is probably pretty good here because Bubblebot seems like a nightmare. That is probably true. But I looked for data. Mech Paladin versus Miracle Rogue does not have a significant enough sample size to look at any matchup stats because they are played at completely different parts of ladder.
Yeah.
But it's probably pretty good. So it remains to be seen. I'm sure people will figure out other ways to beat this deck. You can do it if you want to, but I do stand by the idea that the meta warping nature of it and the turn warping nature of it probably means it'll get adjusted. Yeah. We'll see. We don't know. What we do know is that this show's been going on for a little while, and we're gonna end this week's episode. So we have many folks we'd like to thank. Check out our thanks section on the website, coincassette.com. You can also find our content info, our show notes, our Patreon information. You can monetarily support our show at patreon.com/coincassette. Join us every week live by following us on Twitch at twitch.coincassette.com. Join our community chats in our Discord at discord.coincassette.com. Write into our email at coincassette@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter at coincassette. Like, share, and follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/coincassette. Like some swag, head over to our shop at shop.coincassette.com. Big thanks to our producers, Number Theory, DogeTK, Proby1, Crush Cap, B-Squatch, David P, Fade to Black, Walu, Jeremy T, Bottle Caps, and Lucky. Subs, Grey Lego and a Wild Scientist appeared. Thank you so much for subbing during the show. Coin Concedes, I have a few. Dragon Rider, I think you're still here. You know, Dawn had some stuff happen.
Yeah.
You know, sad. She's pulled it together and been a very strong person, as I know her to be, and talked with us about it in the team Discord, and just, you know, glad she's pulling through what she's going through, and sorry that she has to deal with it. But Dawn, you're great. You should know that. CD Moyer, congratulations on your first-time Legend playing Edelweiss's Frozen Touch deck. Congratulations. Gia, congrats on being good at everything. And Cap, a good buddy, he's moving out from one coast to another, so Cap, good luck with the move. And, you know, we'll miss you around here in New York, but hope everything is great out there. Who else? Who's ready?
Well, I'm going to echo your Coin Concede to Dragon Rider, because, you know, she's... Gosh, I wouldn't wish what she's been dealing with on anybody. And, but she's an incredibly strong person and loved. And, you know, I know she knows that, but, yeah, I'm just going to echo that, because she's great. And I know that she's going to come out on the other side of this, you know, an even stronger person than before. But gosh, I wish she didn't have to go through it this way. So, but Dawn, you're loved, and you're, you know, we're all thinking about you, even when we're not, actively chatting about things. So, I'm also going to give a coin concede to Lamby series. I got to hang out in his Discord a little bit. Oh, not his Discord, in his Twitch stream a little bit this week. Now that I'm on vacation and can like be in Twitch streams that don't involve me only being there for 15 minutes in between meetings. And he's a great streamer in addition to a good caster and a good player, and just kind of a really positive person. Like it almost like almost too positive, and it's really just kind of fun getting to watch him work. So that was a pleasure. So you should go. I think he's going to be streaming more too. So that's a Twitch stream you should follow if you're awake during daytime in the US, because I think he's streaming it his night and they're like 12 hours ahead of us. So
Yes. I like that guy.
yeah.
Edelweiss?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, Dragon Rider as well. She, reached out to me, make sure I was okay, even though she's still dealing with her own stuff. And then also Daring Alkaline for being understanding and rescheduling a thing. We were gonna hang out this weekend, but I've kind of got some of my own stuff going on. So, yeah, it's gonna be a little bit of a rough end of the month for me, but I'm just thankful to have such supportive friends. So coin concede to you two as well. Yeah.
And that'll do it this week. So keep calm and please don't prep your coin. And if you see us on ladder, coin concede.
Coin concede.
Coin concede.
Outro. Stopping recording.
Oh, only 2:17.
It's better than I thought because I sped through that explanations, but we did half of it at the beginning of the show.
Yeah.
It's fine.
I mean, we ended up talking about Rogue a lot anyway, so.
Yes. I don't think there was anyone that will listen back to that episode and be like, I wish they talked about Rogue more. I don't foresee that happening. 357. So thank you so much, everyone, for being here. We're going to pull the stream down now because I have to go eat dinner. But thank you all for being here. Bye.
Bye.